welcome to the July 29th meeting of the Portland City Council. Would you please call the roll, Carla?
Saltzman,
Here.
Novick,
Here.
Fritz,
Here.
Fish, Hales.
Here. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We have the council agenda this morning that starts with communications items where citizens sign up and speak on a subject of their choosing, and we'll do that first. Then we have a regular agenda. If you're here to speak on a regular agenda item, you need to just simply let our council clerk know, and we'll make sure that you get the opportunity to testify. We typically give people 3 minutes to speak, and looking at the size of the group here this morning, that shouldn't be any reason to restrict that any further. If you're here to speak on a council calendar item, we ask that you let us know if you're a registered lobbyist representing an organization, because that's required by city code. We also ask that we always observe the rules of decorum here in this chamber, and that is if you agree with someone and want to signify that somehow, give them a thumbs up or a wave of the hand, and if you don't agree with them and want to also indicate your displeasure, a polite hand gesture is fine, but we ask that we not make vocal demonstrations in favor or against our fellow citizens in this chamber so everyone can be heard. And with that, I think we will turn to first the communications item number 796.
Request of Robert Liberty to address council regarding concerns about neighborhood change and redevelopment.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I am Robert Liberty. I live at Southeast 35th and Tibbet Street. I was born in Portland, and I've lived here almost 50 years. For 4 decades, thousands of Oregonians and Portlanders have been working to carry out our plans and policies to create a livable city with choices in housing and transportation, green spaces and clean water, a city within a region that has stopped sprawl and saved the forest lands and farmlands that make us the Eden of the West. After 40 years of work, the vision of 1975 is becoming the reality of today. What many of us did not expect was that our values and aspirations would become national values and aspirations by the time our plans came to fruition, and that as a result, our city and region would attract national interest. A half-century ago, Tom McCall said, "Oregon, queen bee that she is not ready for the swarm." Ready or not, Tom, the swarm has arrived. I welcome these newcomers because of the talents and enterprise they bring, because of the way they have embraced many of our values, and because they mitigate our Oregonian provincialism. But the inevitable impact of all the new arrivals threatens some of the cherished qualities of this place, including the affordability of housing and the income diversity and social integration that allows. Yes, the market is now responding to high rents and high home prices with an unprecedented wave of construction. In time, the new homes and apartments will moderate the surge in rents and soften the shrinking of the rental home market. But experience in our sister cities on the West Coast shows that the market, as currently shaped and structured, cannot assure the broad supply of housing available to families of modest means and even middle incomes we need. Of course, we should do what we can to build new affordable housing. But even if we are far more successful than we have been in the past, permanently affordable housing will never supply more than 3 or 4% of our housing stock. We need mechanisms that are market responsive and produce large volumes of lower cost housing of different types. This is the middle realm between subsidized housing and market rate expensive housing. I suggest that you organize a think tank or competition for ideas about how to create a system to deliver, say, 50,000 new lower cost housing units around the city by 2025. The system should not require significant public subsidies. It should generate new housing in forms that keep the city green and livable. Finally, it should ensure that the private investment in that new housing circulates within this region, not flows outside of it. Unlike in 1975, today our city and region is blessed with many people with creative ideas and relevant expertise about how to achieve this outcome. And because our city has attracted such attention recently, we can expect national and international contributions to this competition or think tank. I would expect that neighborhood associations and neighborhood preservationists who have opposed some infill and redevelopment projects to participate in this effort because it might offer an alternative to forms of development they oppose. I would ask them to do it as part of their responsibilities as Portlanders. Thank you for your efforts to create a livable and lovable city for all of us. Please invite us to contribute to that essential work.
Robert, thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind making a copy of that available to us, we'd love to have it. So thank you, and appreciate all the years of thought that you've put into these really important issues. Thank you. All right. Let's take the next person, please, 797.
Request of Landon K. Crowell to address council regarding housing project on Ankeny.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Landon K. Kroll, and I'd like to address you about my housing project on North Ankeny. I have been self-employed in Portland for over 20 years. I would like to build a housing project that is 26 units. The idea is to have 6 flats, 16 townhouse units that are 2 and 3 bedrooms, and 4 suites on the top. It has 2,700 square feet of retail space involved in it. There is 3,000 square feet of ground floor green space to work with also. The plan of the project is to have 40% minority, women, and small business participation as the workforce. I currently own 5,300 square feet of this property, of 10,000 square feet, and I am requesting assistance from the city to purchase the other 2 parcels of land, which would be about 1.5 million. Now, I have made application to Portland Development Commission, or attempted to make application to Portland Development Commission and Portland Housing. Unfortunately, I was denied an application, the chance to make an application. So my request is, what can the city do to help me with this project?
Well, I appreciate you calling this to our attention. You have both the housing commissioner here and the commissioner who has the direct liaison responsibility of PDC. So you've gotten it in front of us. Give us a chance to go take a look and see what's possible.
Okay. So I should wait to hear back from you?
Will.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Next one, please.
Item 798, request of Craig Rogers to address council regarding safety on the streets.
Good morning.
Morning. My name is Craig Rogers. My address is 11010 Southeast Yamhill Street, Portland, Oregon, 97216. Well, the streets are as much about safety as they are about transportation. And the street fee is no small item. It involves a large sum of money. And if you don't remember history, you're bound to repeat it. So from the very beginning with the street fee, my opinion was that the cornerstone was styrofoam because it had no vote, no oversight, no sunset. And as it went rolling along, there were committees formed, and at those committees, I had a gentleman named Dr. Eric Fruits sitting next to me, and if he said it once, he said it 10 times. They're just making the numbers up. And a lot of people understood what was going on there. You know, Voodoo Donut came out with the pothole donut. TriMet around Halloween had scarier than the street tax. And let's not forget the naked bike ride. Well, Southeast Uplift requested the basis numbers for the amount of employees of businesses, which would be part of the formula. And they were, Southeast Uplift was refused that information. It went to court. A kabuki dance ensued. And finally, when it came out of court, it showed that the largest employer in the city of Portland was a colonics outfit with 32,000 employees. Well, in my opinion, Dr. Eric Fruits was correct all along when he said they were just making the numbers up. And in my opinion, to believe the numbers that comes out of City Hall, the reason why I'm sitting here before you today is that I want to see that the chief deputy auditor is included in the once-a-week chief of staff meetings at City Hall. Because when you're experienced, you got a nose for these things, I worked 37 years at one company, and somebody could come on the first day, and I'd tell them, if you see me doing something wrong, I want you to tell me. And now and again, they would. And two heads are better than one, and it would prevent making a mistake. And I think that's why we need the chief deputy auditor in these chief of staff meetings from this day forward. Because you want to do things correctly, you want to be transparent and accountable. We need to believe the numbers that come out of City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, item 799.
Request of Michael D. Krupp to address council regarding whose side are you on? He indicated he would not be coming.
Okay, then let's move on to 800.
Request of Antonio Zamora to address council regarding climate change and Shell's Arctic drilling project.
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't come here much to these scenes. I don't have a lot of faith in these type of structures of society. I am been involved with the anti-Arctic drilling project since May 16th. I was in Seattle. Portland, Oregon is my home city. Now we have them in our backyard at the Vigor shipyard. Now, the Phoenica or the Phoenicia ship is not associated with Shell with Shell directly, but it's the assisting icebreaker ship. My really huge concern in my generation is that we don't have a generation to tell others after us. And we have these people, part of our home city, preparing a ship to destroy the Arctic. Now, is climate change something to joke around about? I don't want to take that risk. It's going to be embarrassing to look at my generation, because we have to look at the ones after us and say, this is what we have to give you. It is really disturbing. I am very scared. Back to where I was talking about what is happening down there at Cathedral Park, there's a lot of peaceful nonviolence happening, and it's really beautiful. And we haven't had something like that so unique, and it's making history right now. We cannot allow that ship to leave. And according to some sources, I hear that Vigor Shipyard is some of your biggest donors in these halls, Charlie Hills. And they're in business with Shell's Arctic drilling project, and that's associated with furthering triggering climate change in the future. And I don't know, I'm concerned whose side are we really on? We only have 15 years to turn this climate change ship around. Is it realistic that we're doing enough? And if they were going to really do anything professional about those Greenpeace activists hanging with their lives on that bridge, I really recommend not police doing that job, but real professionals who know how to work with climate materials and stuff like that. So where are we with this world? I mean, really looking down the pipe, are we really doing something that matters? Our legacy will matter to generations after us. It's going to be me that tells them this. I'm almost 30 years old. I don't know what else I'm going to have to do with my future. I'm going to have to do what I can out in the streets and do what I have to do. I almost have no faith in this system anymore. Just asking what y'all side are on. Those people are doing good things out there, those Greenpeace activists, and police are trying to take them down. This is our last fight to stop this. And I just want to say one more thing, excuse me. When the Arctic is gone, it is one violent future. According to the U.S. government, 75% chance major oil spill, and there is no way to clean it, according to Coast Guard Command.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
For real, please.
Thanks a lot.
Stop those cops.
Thank you. All right. I think we're ready to move into our consent calendar. And we've had a number of people ask for things to be moved from the consent calendar to the regular calendar. The ones I have are number 805, number 806, right? Any others? So then let's take a vote, please, on the balance of the consent calendar.
Saltzman?
Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
Fritz? Aye. Hales?
Aye. Okay. Item 801.
accept the quarterly Technology Oversight Committee report from the Chief Administrative Officer.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Jen Clodius, a Senior Management Analyst with the Office of Management and Finance.
And pull that microphone a little closer to you.
Surely.
Yeah, there we go.
Let's try this again. I'm Jen Clodius, Senior Management Analyst with the Office of Management Finance and Staff Support for your Technology Oversight Committee. With me are Jeff Baer, Director of the Bureau of Technology Services, and Diana Garcia, who is Commissioner Fritz's representative on the TOC. We're here to present information from the TOC for the quarterly report from April through June 2015. As you know, the TOC is made up of 5 community members, each appointed by one of you. The TOC members are Ken Neubauer, Wilfred Pinfold, Joshua Mitchell, Diana Garcia, and Colleen Gadbois. Again, Diana is going to present from April to June, and then Jeff will have some updates on what has happened since then. And we have some dashboards to show you where we are in the process.
Good morning. I think we have 4 projects to go over this morning. So the first is, we're going to start in with ITAP. So Information Technology Advancement Project for the Bureau of Development Services. This project develops paperless permit and case management process and allows complete online access to the permitting and case review services. Project deliverables include digitizing and online access of historical permits and property information, implementation and updated permits and case review information, management system, online cases and permit application and review services, mobile online access for field staff, and implementation of an automated queuing system. So the current status is the TOC continues to have concerns around this project, schedule and volume of the remaining work. I think that's been for the last several report outs that we've had these same or similar concerns. The major accomplishments for this quarter are the project manager continues to deliver monthly deficiency reports to Sierra Cedar, and the project is now working on amending contracts to remedy contract gaps and rebaseline the project. Upcoming milestones within the next quarter are rebaselining the project, addressing development environment support, and making adjustments for interfaces moved in and out of scope, addressing gaps resulting from phase 1 gap analysis. So that's coming up. And then again, our biggest risk or concern is just the project schedule and volume of remaining work with this project.
Good morning, Mayor Hales, members of City Council, Jeff Baer, Director of the Bureau of Technology Services, and just want to provide a couple of updates since the report period ended in June. We have had been involved with and had some discussions with Paul Scarlett with BDS, and I've actually deployed one of our resources prior to taking over BTS and PSSRP, Jerry Schlesinger, who is the project manager for the region project, and he has a wealth of experience and background in very complex systems, and he's been working in more of an advisory role with the project manager on the ITAP project, and has offered some insight and some suggestions on how to keep moving forward in progress on that. And I think that it appears that things are moving forward, although I think as is indicated in the report, all scope, schedule, and budget are indicated as red and need some attention, and I'm not expecting any substantial progress out of that area in the near future, but I would be looking for what meaningful progress and activities are taking place over the next several months, and looking for those small wins to look for that momentum that should be taken out of that red territory and moving it, obviously it'll move into yellow, but looking for those indicators that are upward that'll eventually show a trend towards those and mean towards the more stable territory. And I don't have any other additional comments. I've just recently taken on this role, so I'm trying to get deeply involved and understand sort of all the complexities of the system.
Yes, you have, and congratulations. I think this is your first official appearance at a council meeting since your appointment, so.
That's correct. Thank you.
Congratulations. So questions about this project? Do you want to take them one at a time, or would you rather run through all 4? Either way?
Either way.
Any particular questions about this one? No. All right, then let's proceed. Thank you.
Okay. So the next one is procurement solicitation system for the Bureau of Revenue and Financial Services. The project's description was procurement services is outgrowing their current solicitation system, which doesn't offer cost-effective solution or the functionality required for the city. Procurement is planning to replace and integrate 3 systems into one and add functionality that will allow electronic RFP submissions. This project is actually complete. So that's the major accomplishment for the last quarter. Upcoming milestones is they'll give their 90-day report expected in August. And again, because it's complete, we have no risks, concerns, or comments. I did want to say that this project was fairly straightforward and was green, I think, the entire way, at least as I was involved. So that was a positive thing to see for us.
And I don't have any additional comments to add on that.
Questions? Thanks.
Okay. The next is the lien accounting system rewrite. So the lien accounting system is used to record and manage assessments and liens for the city as required by the city charter and Oregon state law. The application is written in an old programming language and is one of 2 remaining applications on the mainframe server, which is scheduled to be decommissioned as of July 1st, 2015. Because of the tight timeline and resource constraints, the decision was made to rewrite the existing system using a more modern programming language and transfer it into a Windows environment. The status of this report is that the project is currently meeting expectations. Major accomplishments is they completed the development work for most of the go-live requirements for all their modules. They are working on report development. User acceptance testing and regression testing continues to be in progress. And the production environment is ready, and parallel testing is occurring in production for certain modules. Upcoming milestones for the next quarter is to resolve any issues found during UAT and regression testing, to complete the UAT, regression, and parallel testing, complete user training, update technical documents, and complete cutover. The TOC has 3 main concerns about this project. The project extended schedule, it extended into July, and for parallel implementation and production phases, but moving the mainframe decommission to July 31st. So that was a concern that we had. And then security module included role-based access, may not be fully implemented before go live, but all other critical functions will be available. And the project is currently meeting expectations.
And just some quick updates on the lien accounting. The application is substantially complete at this point in time, and the reason for the delay, and we've actually extended the project schedule out to the end of August to allow for more testing and validation of the new system, and we want to make sure that the cutover is smooth and that the auditor's office has gone through their substantial user acceptance testing, so that's the reason why it's going on into August.
So the mainframe decommissioning is
It's
being
moved.
postponed
Yes,
until August?
that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just hope it lasts that long, right? Go ahead, please.
Okay. The next one is the PCI and Payment Gateway project. So the city is required to meet the payment card industries and data security standards as part of their merchant services contract, as required by the card networks, so Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, all those folks. The city does not currently meet the PCI DSS 3.0 standards and is required to remediate the card processing environment or adopt other means of processing card payments to enable the city to be compliant by December 31st of this year. So the major accomplishments for this quarter is the project chose to outsource the payment gateway to improve transaction processing, reduce support cost, and meet PCI requirements. They are ready to implement the gateway, confirmed bank account mapping and payment flows, executing the NIC paperwork to onboard the merchant IDs. So good progress there in the gateway. We have some upcoming milestones to develop the application integration with the parking meter vendors, integrate, test, and migrate payment pages and sales groups to the NIC hosted order pages, determine if enterprise from Windstream enterprise PCI remediation is viable, implement governance model, and integrate training into City Learner. The current risks is the timeline is really short to get this PCI implementation completed, and there still needs to be a confirmed enterprise solution for the PCI remediation.
And a few comments on some of the activities. We've got a team in BTS and others who are actively engaged in working on pursuing to obtain the PCI compliance. A couple of things that occurred as of yesterday. The Portland Fire and Rescue recruit fee is now PCI compliant and up and running, as is the Parkway donations is also done. So we've got a couple of things that are complete. We're also actively pursuing the parking meter with Calais and Parkeon to have those completed as well. I believe I heard this morning that the Parkeon, we're going to be running the payments through that organization, which is only for the Streetcar, I believe. So numerous activities are taking place, and a lot of people are actively pursuing so we can pursue the compliance.
So it says budget to be determined, and I thought we had some budget number, big number for this PCI.
Yeah,
We had a budget number. I'm not sure if we have a project budget number,
I think
right?
that's correct.
That's my understanding, is that we don't have the project budget.
So we allocated a certain amount of money, and I don't remember the sum either, or maybe you do, but you're still under what's been, well, you think you are.
Right.
Still under what the council's allocated to the project, right?
I believe that's correct, yes.
That is my understanding as well.
Okay, so questions overall from the council? I guess Paul Scarlett is here. Obviously, there are a couple of these projects that have big question marks, and the council, in each of these quarterly reports, has been paying close attention, as the TOC has itself. So I think this process is doing a good job of highlighting where things are working well and where there are concerns and issues to monitor and to make sure that we succeed in these big technology projects. Obviously, the biggest one of all is the ITAP project, and Paul's been working along with his team and all of you to get this done, but we're still at some risk here. So appreciate highlighting that and making that both clear to the council and to the public. Any further questions or comments that we have here? And I'll turn it over to anyone else that wants to speak. And give, I don't know if Paul, if you have anything you want to add on this. Looks like he does. So let's give Director Scarlett a chance to come up and talk about the project, and then we'll see if there's public testimony as well. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Paul Scarlett. Thanks for inviting me up to say a few words about the ITAP project. We do acknowledge that the project is in red and will remain in red for some time. However, we have been intentionally focused on, of course, carefully managing the project and deploying necessary resources to keep on pace and to even try to make up time. As Jeff indicated, someone from BTS has joined the team to assist Rebecca in managing the project and work with the vendors. Over the last several weeks and months, we've spent considerable amount of time working with the vendor to recalibrate the timeline as identified by TOC members, which we appreciate their help in their oversight duties, to look at the schedule and the volume of work. One of the areas that we feel could gain some momentum and some changes, looking at what can be delivered sooner than later. And so we've reviewed a number of scenarios recently, and two rise to the top. One would be, can we provide some functionality soon? And one of the areas that we feel could benefit the customers in the city would be to implement project docs, which is the electronic plan review and electronic submittal. That would be a huge benefit. Currently, we have about 800 to 1,000 people coming through the door each week at the permit center. And we certainly that would be a reduction in number of people needing to bring in big, heavy plans to the permit center. Certainly, there's costs associated with print and paper. And so this would be a huge benefit to our customers, and some of the sort of examples we've received that, big projects could save up to close to $500,000. We've got some examples for large projects. That's about how much they spend in printing costs alone. So we're looking at this, and it wouldn't impact the other part of the project. So that's one of the scenarios we're looking at. The other scenario that seems most feasible would be continue on with the project, and part of it will be a re-baseline to using current practices and experiences to kind of project out what's a realistic implementation timeline. So the plan review stuff could come next year, 2016. The long-term plan to implement the full package is looking more like 2018. We still have to look at those timelines a little more closely. That's early preliminary indication to see if we can find some efficiencies. Since joining, Commissioner Salzman certainly has made it clear that ITAP is top priority, similar to Commissioner Fritz had done with over the last couple of years, and we really are working closely with the vendors, and Cliff Smith, who's here, our quality assurance consultant, is part of that team or part of the process in helping us to get there. So I'm excited and motivated with some of the late development in terms of really honing in and finding some new timelines and some new possibilities for early functionality deployment that could benefit our customers and our employees. Certainly there's more work to be done, but and I'll turn it over to Rebecca, our project manager, to expand a little bit more, but that's where things are at from my end. We acknowledge that we're behind and do feel we can provide the council, which is what we committed to last time, was some more realistic timeline, because each time we come, there's a new timeline. What is it? So we've taken real good amount of time to really dive into when will this thing be delivered.
Thanks, Paul. And I know that Rebecca's going to go into this, but I think it's worth reiterating that it's the vendor who is the sticky point in terms of recalibrating the project. That the Bureau has been doing a lot of good work and has had a lot of oversight. We are dependent on the vendor doing their job, so I know that that's something that you're aware of. I just want to make sure the public are.
I appreciate that. I will also acknowledge that BDS and the interagency team members have been working very closely, and everyone's committed and doing a great job in delivering this project and understands the significance of this transformational change that will come to the city when it's delivered.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Upon our last visit, we talked about the challenges in the project and the complexity that comes with the integrated processes in permitting that we have here at the city. That is also an issue in building this system. To deliver an elegance and easy-to-use system for our customers takes extraordinary measures to build the system each component and step of the way. Our vendor has, since March, been fully aligned with us on this endeavor. We have a methodology that we're following very closely and carefully, and it has led us to the intense scrutiny of the remaining work and planning that out in a schedule that is achievable. We do believe that we can do this on or during late 2018. There is intense effort now that we'll be working to identify areas where we can bring that in some. Out of concern to the increasing activity level in the service center and for all the people working behind the scenes to deliver these permits, we do believe that delivering plan review earlier is viable. We've figured out a way to do that in a way that will not impact our current project team, which is also very important. We studied the complexity in all of the permitting practices, as well as what comes from implementing multiple modules from other vendors, and still believe that the best course of action is to complete the entire system and roll it out to the city. The mechanism to deliver project docs plan review early would allow the city to get familiar with one of the technologies and achieve some benefits in the activities that the citizens need to do to submit those plans, as well as what it takes for all our plan reviewers to study and recommend and decide on final resolutions for these plans. The options that we have studied have caused us to recommend a particular course of action, which is stay the course, deliver all the functionality, but make sure we deliver some success initially. And you will be hearing what our timeline is for that upon our next visit. We are for sure we can do it in 2016. We think we can do it early, but we would rather be very sure. And we must continue our discussions with all our stakeholder groups. We are making recommendations to those groups. The decision is not final. We are taking counsel from Commissioner Salzman's office as well on the viability of these plans and achieving the objectives that the project is supposed to achieve. In the next several months, we are finalizing the plan. We are in discussions with our vendors on what contractual issues need to be adjusted to align to this new timeline. We have financials to build and support that plan. We do also have the potential to adjust some resources so that we can focus more time on delivery, which has the potential to bring the timeline in. But we, for sure at this point, need to say 2018 would be the date for all functionality being completed. In the next month, we are conducting a full stakeholder review and discussion about the merits of this plan, and we are entertaining much discussion and need to accommodate each bureau's needs in this area, because an early rollout does involve all parties. The final solution involves all parties, and we need to meet their needs and their constraints. Thank you. And to my right is Clifford Smith, our independent quality assurance agent, who has been participating in these detailed discussions. And I'm wondering if you have any questions at this point.
Questions from Mr. Smith?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd like to ask you, Mr. Smith, you were a little more charitable in your color coding rating for the budget, the scope stability, and confidence. You gave it yellow as opposed to the Technology Oversight Committee's red. I guess, could you give us some of your thinking on that? And
Certainly. Partially to give the project and the director and other stakeholders a key focus on the schedule. Holding back on changing schedule, scope and budget to red due largely to the fact that I didn't have immediate definitive indication that we would have budget problems and or scope problems. In recent months and in the last TOC report, those are in fact red in my reports.
are they?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other actions or strategies that you want to recommend either to us or to the TOC or to the Bureau of Information Technology as your partner in this that can raise your confidence level and therefore ours?
No, go ahead,
Oh,
because
thank you.
we've discussed this.
I will say, from a scope point of view, the project is proceeding, assuming that it's going to deliver all of scope still. So that's on the plus side. On the other side, the schedule discussions that the project manager, Rebecca, had alluded to have been proceeding. They're still a fair bit away from being finalized. The date itself, the late 2018, is a very risky date. In spite of the fact of how far it is, and partially because of how far away it is, but there are some metrics and some unknowns still facing the project that make it difficult to estimate with any real confidence. However, that planning process must continue and come up with a final schedule. When a final schedule is available, and now that we've defined what we're going to do and how long it's going to take, we can expect that there will be some additional budget requirements for this project. The city staff, as well as additional city staff that will be allocated, will have to be funded and paid for. The vendor will ask for additional travel expenses, and the vendor will, once the schedule is laid out, present the city with an amount that they expect to be paid for the change in plan and the longer timeline. Finally, this project can expect to have to introduce an additional contingency, considering that the project is now due for another 2 years plus before completion, will require contingency to account for unknowns that will be coming. So those are finish the planning and be prepared for additional budget requests.
Let me make sure I understand that. So you believe the contractor, the vendor, will be asking for additional expenses, even though I think it's fair to characterize your report as saying that most, if not all, of the delay issues are the responsibility of the vendor, not of the city.
It's a combination. Certainly, I've identified the vendor as being responsible for a number of delays. They've also said we're responsible for some of the delays. So we're working through those things. But what I can share with you is that we had a pretty focused relook at this back in March. And since that time, there has been, I guess, improved deliverables operationally and in leadership. And so you're asking what can we share with you in terms of raising the confidence. What we've seen over the last several months is they are delivering more timely. They're actually achieving the target dates and accomplishing the functionalities that's been laid out as part of what's called a resync plan. In this case, there's always going to be some finger crossing, but we're now focused on what can actually be delivered, when and how, and we're seeing some really good results.
And just to follow up on the mayor's question, I know that you're working with the city attorney's office and that in refiguring the contract, because it is a fixed price contract, there will be some allocation of the delays due to the vendor team completely turning over the first year, for example, versus some, because that may be partially due to city staff, because as you said, the scope hasn't changed.
Correct.
So it's not like, I mean, we told them up front, or those who set up the contract told them up front that this is a very complex system. In fact, I think one of my main takeaways is astonishment that our staff in the development bureaus managed to do things manually and make the system work so fast, and how complicated it is to try to train a computer to do what our wonderful staff in development services and transportation and other bureaus, thanks to the co-location that Commissioner Saltzman and Fish and I set up back in my first term, that it's astonishing that we do so well, and it's somewhat nice that computers find it more difficult to figure it all out than real people do.
Some comfort, I suppose.
I will actually note, too, that in terms of going to electronic plan submittal, I have discovered in my time in the city that emails don't always show up. And sometimes, like when I transmitted my memo transferring the commissioner in charge duties to Commissioner Saltzman, it had maybe 10 attachments to it, and I attached some of the wrong things, just by mistake. People make errors, and in fact, computer routing sometimes makes errors. So I hope that we will have some mechanism, because now you've got the paper, and it's either there or it's not, right? So I want to make sure that there's some kind of feedback loop. Yes, we received your application. It's got all of these things. Was that what you meant to send us? Those kinds of things.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Other questions or requests of Paul and his team? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
See if there's anyone else that wants to speak on this item. Does anyone sign
No
up?
one signed up.
Okay, anyone want to speak on this item? Then I believe a motion is in order to adopt the report.
Would so move?
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Saltzman?
Once again, thanks to the Technology Oversight Committee, and welcome to Ms. Garcia for your joining the committee and your first appearance here before us. I think we always feel it's important to have somebody, at least one member from the TOC present at these meetings, so appreciate you making the time to do that. And certainly, as Paul indicated, and ITAP is certainly on the top of my agenda as Commissioner in charge of BDS, and we're going to work through these issues and come up with come up with some solutions that may be sticking to the course, but they may also involve some changes. So, in fact, I have a retreat scheduled on Saturday, August 15th, with the key players on the team to discuss the future of the project. Thank you. Aye.
Novick.
Thanks to the TOC and thanks to BDS for their presentation. Aye.
Fritz.
Thanks, Ms. Garcia, for being my representative and for your excellent first presentation. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you for all the time that the citizens put into this process, and Commissioner Salzman for setting it up. I guess one of the good things is it will be no surprise to folks when the ITAP project isn't done on its original schedule or even on the schedule after the schedule after the schedule. There's been multiple, or there's been 4 or 5, well, back to Commissioner Salzman, 5 different commissioners in charge of this project. Was glad to hear Director Scarlett mention that we did reach a turning point back in March where we started getting things turned around with the new team that we insisted on being brought on. So I'm looking forward to continuing to support the project, and I appreciate all the work of the Technology Oversight Committee. Aye.
Hales.
Well, I appreciate the discussion and the good oversight being provided by the commissioners in charge of the Bureau during the time this work's been going on, and Paul, to you and your team for endeavoring to make this, to get this done well, timely, and at a reasonable cost. Those are still the goals. Big, complicated information technology projects are fraught with peril, whether you're in the public sector or the private sector. I can speak to that from both points of view, having been involved in those kinds of projects in both environments. The trouble is, in the public sector, ours are done in the light of day, and if there's a cost overrun or a delay, it's a public issue. And it also affects the credibility of government every time we have to change the schedule on something. So we have to be really clear about what's going on and why changes happen, and if there are additional costs, are they reasonable, and are they fairly apportioned between the city that might have caused some costs or delay in cost increases or delays, and a contractor. Having, again, worked on the other side of that ledger, sometimes contractors make mistakes and they shouldn't expect us to pay for them. So that's why we do have to have the city attorney involved whenever there's a situation like this. We keep working with a vendor. We try to make it succeed. In rare cases, we have to start over because a vendor is unable to perform. Obviously, no one wants us to get to that nightmare scenario in this case, but sometimes it happens. So this process is good. It's painful and uncomfortable to have to look at each of these projects in public and examine their status. I think this process is working. We're doing a good job of managing these projects and managing risk, and there's a lot of risk here. So that's why the rhythm of these presentations to the council is very important. It's not an exercise. It's us exercising our responsibility to do oversight of every dollar that the city spends, whether it's for an internal function or a project out in the community like a new park or a paving project, where we also have a responsibility to come in on time and on budget every time that's possible. So the pressure's still on, Paul. You know that, and so does Jeff and his team. So we look forward to hearing your next report. We look forward to improvements and clarity and certainty coming out of this work, because those are the goals. Thank you. Aye. Okay, let's move on to 802.
Approve innovation funding for 12 micro grant proposals for fiscal year 2015-16.
Well, speaking of the public sector doing things a little differently, we have Director Miller here and his team. I got to relate a conversation which I may have mentioned. I was at a U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in my first month in office, and the mayor of Louisville, a guy named Greg Fisher, who had, like me, an extensive private sector background before deciding to run for public office. I was asking him, how much time do you spend on this extracurricular stuff as opposed to running the city? How much time do you spend trying to learn from your colleagues and get new information? And again, being the sort of person that Greg is, he looked me right in the face and said, well, how many people are working for your city? I said, well, about 5,600. Why? He said, well, how many of them are charged with big picture thinking and research and development? I said, oh, I guess that would be me and a few others. You made your point. Thank you. And the point of the innovation program here is that all of us ought to be thinking about research and development and new ideas, and we ought to apportion some of our time and budget to fostering those new ideas. And that's really what this project is about. And this council decided to start doing this in a budget where we were cutting $21 million out of the city's general fund budget. And we've continued it as better times have come back. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've done that we've stuck with it, and that we've now encouraged bureaus to think about new ways of doing things, new ways to serve our citizens, new ideas, and again, taking a risk with a small amount of money that something might work out or it might not, but people won't be punished for trying new things and failing occasionally. We want them to succeed in most of the instances, and they are, and that's great, but we're deliberately trying to take Mayor Fisher's advice and have a little bit of effort at big picture thinking, new ideas and research and development. And I'm pretty pleased at the progress and looking forward to the report.
Thank you very much. Fred Miller, Director of OMF. I'm here with Jane Brayton and Janet Storm, who have been doing lots of work, and will say more about the program. I just wanted to kick it off and say you should feel good about this because it's designed to promote a culture of innovation, and we're finding a tremendous amount of interest on the part of employees. And today you have 12 grants to approve and presentations by 4 of the potential grant recipients that I think is always a very positive, upbeat time. This is now our 3rd year, and we've provided something like $1.7 million so far in grants, and now more coming, and it's in the budget for next time. There have been 144 ideas generated, and in the last 2 times when there have been, our committee that makes the decision makes the recommendation, we've had 40 to 50 grant submittals each time. So employees are really taking this seriously and coming in with a variety of ideas that I think otherwise wouldn't be tapped. And you'll get some sense of the enthusiasm for that as we go. This next year, we plan to do 2 rounds because we want the process to go through so that recommendations are ready for the fall bump and the spring bump. And there's one out right now outstanding that where we'll get the submittals by August 10. And we've tried a couple of new things. Yesterday, there was something called a citywide innovation fair, where we had people from different bureaus sitting there that will help people with their ideas and say how they fit or give them ideas. 60 people or thereabouts showed up for that. And there's just some 3 hours in the morning where they could drop in. But there's clearly lots of interest, and it's working. So I think we'll continue in these next 2 sessions, and you'll see the results. But we're really happy with the interaction and the help of our outside committee. I don't think I saw anyone here, but we've got a selection panel that has been very helpful, because this is a little bit of work to go through all of these and give the feedback. So anyway, I give it a really good bill of health. I think the program's working, and you'll hear more, and I'll get it out of the way in a minute when you actually hear some presentations from successful submitters.
Thank you. I'm Jane Brayton from OMF Business Operations, and we are delighted to be back again with another group of our proposers. Again, they put in some good thinking in their bureaus. They took a look at the criteria, and they got an endorsement from the review panel, and we hope get your endorsement today. We do want to thank the mayor and council for this opportunity. We continue to hear from proposers that they didn't think their project could happen any other way without this funding. And interesting enough, we also hear from proposers who are not recommended for funding, and they're thanking you as well. But they're thanking you for the opportunity to bring ideas forward and get them seen by people in the different parts of their organization. So they're coming back and saying, even if something didn't get funded, you know, that idea got some legs to it, and we actually were able to get it done. And so I think that's that momentum, that culture of innovation in the city that Fred was really talking about when OMF embraced this program. So we do want to thank some of our proposers, and I'm just going to ask them to wave, because we've got a few of them here today. If you can wave.
Good morning. Good work.
For the council. We'll be bringing up a couple of them to share their good ideas with you. Again, just for background, this round was strictly micro grants. So those things are $10,000 or less, although they could go up to $20,000. We received 43 proposals from 14 bureaus. So again, we're getting a nice broad swath from throughout our city partners. We shared these proposals with bureau directors for a period of time so they could take a look at them, review them, provide some input, and also identify some cross-bureau partnerships. The review panel had a very tough job in looking at these, as you can imagine. They used the criteria that these proposers needed to promote equity and opportunity. They needed to improve customer service. They needed to save time or money, and that would be time or money for either the city, partners, or community members. And they needed to improve city services and make things better. We invited all of our proposers in for a facilitated meeting with the review panel where they could answer questions, receive feedback, and then they narrowed it down to the 12 that you see in the ordinance with you today. As Fred mentioned, we did have our innovation fair yesterday, and it had a couple of components. So we had the fair with many bureaus participating, both providing resources and getting questions answered. We also had our partners in HR doing a strategic creativity workshop that I believe one of her sessions even had some standing room in that. So we know that that may generate even more getting ready for our next couple of campaigns, or even if it doesn't touch an innovation funding request, it may generate some good ideas in those bureaus. So now I'd like to introduce Janet Storm from my division. She's really served as the primary contact for proposers and the review panel, and she'll be introducing a few of our proposers. We're going to step away but be back for questions. Thanks.
Thank you both. Morning, Janet.
Good morning. My name is Janet Storm. I'm a management analyst with the Office of Management and Finance Business Operations. And as Jane said, I coordinate the grant process for the Innovation Fund. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on this particular process. On April 27th, OMF Business Operations put out a call for microgrant ideas citywide. All city employees were notified that the city was looking for creative microgrant proposals that, as Jane said, accomplish one or more of the following: promote equity and opportunity in city government and our community, improve customer service to the community and/or city customers, save time or money for the city, its partners, or community members, and improve city services and generally make things better. Interested employees submitted their one-page microgrant proposals. The proposals were then sent to all bureau directors for input on those proposals from their own bureaus, as well as to identify cross-bureau partnership opportunities. We then forwarded 43 microgrant proposals submitted by 14 bureaus to the Innovation Review Panel. The panel was asked to evaluate the proposals based on their ability to pass the following 5 filters. Number 1, do you think the proposal is innovative? Is it original? Does it show strategic creativity? Number 2, taking other funding sources into consideration, such as the sponsor bureau's operating budget, is the Innovation Fund the most logical funding source for this particular proposal? Number 3, can this project actually be carried out? Do you believe that the proposed project can be achieved within the estimated budget provided? Number 4, are all of the key partners confirmed to be on board with this effort? And number 5, are there benefits to the proposed project? Does it advance equity? Does it save time or money? Does it provide opportunity? Is there a potential for greater benefits with broader applications? On June 9th, the review panel met and through a facilitated discussion with proposers, agreed upon the funding recommendations for the 12 proposals you see before you today. We've invited 5 proposers to come up and share a little bit more with you about their proposals. And first up, I'd like to introduce you to Captain Greg Ennis from Portland Fire and Rescue, who will be speaking about the solar water heater demonstration project. Captain Ennis.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Greg Ennis. I work for the Portland Fire Bureau, and I work at the logistics section. A while back in April, we had a citizen approach Fire Station 13 about a solar project. We looked at his ideas and decided that we would like to look at incorporating a solar hot water heating system at Station 13, which is in the Lloyd Center District. The solar heating system works by increasing the temperature of the water flow that flows into the regular water heater so that the water heater doesn't have to work as hard and use as much natural gas to create the hot water heater for showers, dishwashers, and other things. It consists of a solar collector on the roof and a storage tank for the warm water. The project at Station 13 uses approximately about $3,100, around $3,000 worth of natural gas each year. We estimated by looking at amounts of bills that we paid out that approximately about $1,500 of this is every month is strictly for the hot water heater. I did that by looking at winter months versus summer months. Summer months mostly is just going to be hot water heater. We're not going to be using the furnaces to heat the fire stations. So we estimated about $1,500 in that. We had a contractor, Synchro Solar, come out, take a look at, give us a bid on the system there so we could get a little bit more harder numbers. We initially thought it would be around $12,000. Turns out their initial bid was around $15,000. But they did tell us that they thought they could save about 50 to 75% of the use of the natural gas for the hot water heater through the solar system. I presented you with some handouts that you could look at how it's designed, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of idea of what it's going to look like. We think that if we do get those kind of figures, 50 to 75%, we could save approximately between $750 to $1,125 every year in natural gas usage. And it would pay, if those numbers are correct, it would pay for itself in 13 months if it's 75% savings, and 20 months if it's 50% savings. So the savings cost above the cost of the project over 17 years, we're looking at 50%, about $13,800, and if it's 75%, we're looking at about $20,700. So we could utilize that savings for other things, saving taxpayer monies, putting in another system at another fire station, or replacement of the system in that one, because they estimated it would only last about 17 years. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great. Well, I think this is one of a lot of projects where obviously we're interested in not only having you try this, but also having the information come back to us about how well it worked, because obviously if we get those kinds of, that kind of performance in terms of reduction of energy costs in a city that has an aggressive climate action plan and a council that wants to make those kind of projects happen, it'll be very useful to us to see how many of those we want to replicate in other fire stations or other facilities after you get the numbers back from actual gas bills as opposed to the ones you've estimated.
Yeah, we're very optimistic about it. We hope it works the way that Synchro Solar told us, and it'll be a great project.
Good question.
So I noticed you were originally looking at solar electric, and decided after consultation with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability that solar hot water made more sense. So we have a fire station, I think it's on Southeast 52nd.
Yes.
That does have solar electric.
I'm not sure of that. I didn't know that there was one already in existence right now, so I can't.
Yeah, I remember
can't
going
talk
out
to
there
that.
to do a dedication years ago.
I can
was just
guarantee I'll find out now, though.
Yeah, I was just curious how that's doing. Maybe you could send me an email.
I could look at that, and I'll definitely send you an email on it.
Okay.
That'd be good to know, because, again, we've got a climate action plan that says we're serious about this, and we are, and the price of panels has fallen quite a bit.
Yeah.
So solar hot water has always been a good idea in a situation like this where you have a lot of hot water volume. It makes sense whether it's a community center or a fire station. But now that the cost of photovoltaic panels have fallen so much, there may be more places where it's cost effective to do that, fire stations and otherwise.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to introduce Margaret Evans from Portland Parks and Recreation, who will talk with you about community center kiosks.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. It's good to be here this morning, and want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to talk about the Innovation Fund grant that we requested. We have been looking at our recruitment and outreach strategies for the last several years and how we can reach the community much more closely and offer resources for them. A big thank you to actually one of our park rangers, Sam Sachs, is the individual that brought forward the innovation grant in seeing an opportunity to put the two together, be able to take what he's seeing out in the community and also partner it with our outreach efforts. The kiosk at the community center will allow community members to come in, have a tool, a resource, a computer, and information about City of Portland jobs and opportunities. In looking at the Innovation Fund and also looking at the project, we reviewed our various community centers and also the communities that we serve, and we selected East Portland Community Center to be our pilot project. It has the ideal facility, if you've been out to it. The front area, we will have the ability to have a workstation, also computer and a resource center. We are going to utilize our community center shutdown this fall as the opportunity to do the build out. We've been working with our IT staff. They're already ready to go once we have the build out completed and being able to install the equipment. One of the great things that we've been able to do with this project is also look at, as was mentioned, cross-bureau partnership. We partnered with the Bureau of Human Resources to see how can we partner together in this project. And what they have agreed to is help us with marketing materials. Also, we're going to have information there, and they're going to have staff available during normal working hours that people can call and ask how to maneuver our NeoGov system, which sometimes is a barrier for individuals. And then also part of this project is that they will provide staffing in the evenings and the weekends when most people are looking for that opportunity for assistance. Maybe they're working during the day and they want to be able to sit with somebody in the evening and walk through it. So that's one of the great things about this, is being able to partner with them. Like I said, timing of the project, we're taking advantage of the fall shutdown. So we're looking at starting this in September. Our facilities maintenance team is already queuing it up as far as materials and how they will put it together. We're also starting to work on our marketing materials so that we can reach out with our community partners that we've been doing outreach now. Because one of the goals that we're really focusing on is not just providing the resource, but how are we doing our outreach to increase our equity efforts and reach the community, especially in East Portland, where East Portland Community Center serves a very diverse population. So there is the project overall in general, and then if you have any questions.
Questions?
So this, the kiosk is all about applying for jobs the city has?
Correct.
Okay.
So the kiosk will be a computer kiosk. It will provide information out. They'll be directed immediately to our job information page. So it's not just Portland Parks and Recreation positions, but all of City of Portland positions. Also, Bureau of Human Resources, once they have their video available and how to apply with the city, will actually be able to have that continuously running. They can actually go online at the computer and set up their NeoGov account, be able to apply for jobs online, be able to call for questions, or also ask for staff assistance.
Great.
Let's check and make sure that the BHR video is captioned, and then how are we dealing with language translation?
Yes, so one of the reasons that we selected East Portland Community Center was to make sure it was accessible for all, our first pilot project. The location provides accessibility for wheelchairs. Also, we're looking at sight and hearing impairment as well as language. So we've already started translating some of our own materials, like our career opportunity brochure, into Spanish is our first one, and then we're moving forward with other languages. So, and we also want to have the language line available and have that. So we're, in addition to the technical piece of it, be able to have a resource guide there available. So languages, if somebody needs a particular language, we'll be able to connect them with the right person.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Now I'd like to ask Mike Reed from the Bureau of Environmental Services to come up, and he will speak about permit coordination for a better river.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Mike Reed. I'm with the Bureau of Environmental Services. My proposal is titled Permit Coordination for a Better River. This proposal seeks to partner with PSU's Center for Public Service, asking them to conduct an assessment of a proposed expansion of the city's streamlining team process with federal and state agencies and the Bureau of Development Services. Our streamlining team is the entity that coordinates permit review of city capital projects and has assisted with joint public projects such as the new Tillicum Bridge across the Willamette River. Streamlining has been successful at reducing the amount of time and money spent during the permitting process, but is not currently available to private applicants. This innovation proposal seeks to create a coordinated permit review process for private applicants. The Bureau of Planning Sustainability is a co-partner in this innovation proposal and will take the results of this study to request formal adoption of the newly coordinated permitting process through the River Plan. The River Plan is an update of the 1987 Greenway Zoning Code and Plan. The coordinated permit review process will have the following desired outcomes: development of a one-stop shop process for applicants to understand all the permitting needs for projects, reduced time and money spent during the permitting process, and meet multiple objectives for protecting and enhancing the environment while supporting redevelopment along the river. This innovation proposal will meet many of the City Council's priorities for this innovation fund. A coordinated permit review that facilitates permitting of private projects will support and foster investment in living wage jobs, which is an important part of the city's equity goals and the comprehensive plan policies. It will also assist small property owners and single-family residences with navigating the permitting process while ensuring fish and wildlife enhancements are encouraged and promoted.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Questions? Good work. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
And next, we'll hear from Lieutenant Mike Fort from the Portland Police Bureau, who will speak about Great Families Training for the Hispanic Community.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Thank you all for having me. I'm Mike Fort. I'm a lieutenant with the Police Bureau's Youth Services Division, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you just briefly about the great program as I propose to bring to the Hispanic community. The GREAT program is it's a national program. The acronym stands for Gang Resistance Education and Training. It's a copyrighted curriculum that has been created over many years. The program is proven and evidence-based and not new. The innovative part is specifically engaging the Hispanic community, which is what this proposal is about. We have the opportunity to present this program. It's a 6-week, 2-hour a day, 1 day a week for 6 weeks program to families in the Hispanic community. It is designed for the parents or guardians of children aged 10 to 14. The program is taught by police officers and a co-facilitator that is selected from the involved community, in this case, the Latino community. And specifically, the reason to engage this community specifically is that the Latino community grew by 64% over the last census in the state of Oregon, and currently 9.4% of the population in Portland. There seems to be a need to create and build a trusting relationship between police officers and the Hispanic community, specifically, or particularly, I guess, the immigrant Hispanic community that is often reluctant to report crimes and or report crimes against them. This is an opportunity for us, the police officers, to build that relationship so they're more comfortable. The cost involved in this is primarily, it costs about $5,000 for each 6-week session to put on. And we reach about 32 or so people, or we hope to, each session. The food is primarily the biggest cost. We feed people. It's a gathering opportunity. It's an opportunity to communicate over food, and I believe that will be successful. The other part of that is personnel costs. It costs us money that we don't have budgeted to do this for a police officer, and we have an administrative support staff, one person, that also helps to put these on. So I've a lot more details. I wanted to keep it very short, but I'll ask if you have questions that I can address specifically for you. I'll be happy to.
How are you going to identify the families that will be served?
The families we anticipate to be identified by the, so we to the Hacienda Development, the Ortiz Community Center over in Northeast Portland. They will, once we are ready to facilitate this, they will have a sign up, or they will post it in their community. They will select the families that come.
Great. Excellent. I shouldn't use that word, but it is great.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
This is one of several proposals from the Police Bureau, a couple of which have been approved, that are really trying to do deliberate, careful outreach and equity work, and we appreciate the fact that that's where a lot of the energy in the Bureau is going, and you're putting this proposal together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Our final presenter today is Cameron Glasgow from the Portland Bureau of Transportation, who will speak about mobile technology reporting of post-earthquake bridge inspections.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Cameron Glasgow. I'm a bridge engineer with the Bureau of Transportation, and I'm here to present to you a valuable innovation for the Bureau of Transportation's post-earthquake bridge inspection response plan. In the early hours and days following an earthquake, a damage assessment and rapid reporting of the city's infrastructure status is critical for the city's operational and economic recovery. To that end, PBOT maintains and periodically practices a post-earthquake inspection plan for its bridges, which I brought today in my inspection satchel. Unfortunately, the current plan relies heavily on hard copy route maps and handwritten notes that are radioed to the local dispatch center and later conveyed to the citywide 911 operations center for wider dissemination. The proposed innovation would bring the bridge inspection plan out of the paper age into the mobile technology era. This transformation would be accomplished by equipping the bridge inspectors with tablets for recording and transmitting damage information instantly to the citywide 911 operations center. Immediately after the inspectors input their observations into the tablets, the data would automatically populate maps on the city's GIS servers viewable on the city's network. Additionally, the bridge closure maps could also be made available to the media and to citizens alike via the Portland Maps website. Bridges often serve as a critical link in our transportation infrastructure over or around both natural and built obstacles. Bridge closures can often serve as pinch points along entire corridors and can result in long detours. Publishing bridge closure information as soon as possible would limit demands on first responders who may ordinarily be fielding calls for this information, greatly improving our customer service. Through funding this innovation grant, thereby equipping bridge inspectors with mobile technology, the speed at which bridge damage information is disseminated will be significantly increased and will contribute to getting the city back on its feet after an earthquake. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you. This is very exciting.
Good work.
I'm excited.
Good work. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thanks a lot. And those are your four?
Those are our five, I think.
Sorry, five, yes,
Five,
sorry.
so we're open to questions from you.
Okay.
And thank you very much, proposers, for coming in.
All right, questions about the whole package? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See if there's anyone from the public who wants to testify on this item?
Yes, we have two people,
Okay.
Lightning Watchdog X and Sam Sachs.
Come on up. Sam was here, I saw him. He's probably going back to work, but Lightning, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lightning with Lightning Watchdog X. I've really enjoyed the presentation of the speakers. I think some of your creative ideas are very innovative, and I look forward to seeing the final results. But again, from my position, absolutely approve of any and all grants, if not even more funding to you in the future. What I like about the speakers, as you noticed on this innovation grant process, is that everybody kind of had an excitement about what they were talking about. And innovation, creating something new, presenting it, is very exciting, and you could see that within the speakers, that they really enjoy this process and what they're doing. And we need to look at, on the bigger picture throughout this city, is that we have a tremendous amount of creativity happening in the transportation, all different areas. If you look at Uber, Lyft, and some of the great innovators that we see, but we also have to look and understand that we need to create job retention when we're creating new innovation. And we want to look at real close to understand that, because we're seeing that in the city, that we need to focus on that and make sure that the new companies coming into this city also understand that we want to protect the current jobs and add more and benefit all the people in the city, all the people in the community. And innovation can do that if we create ways of doing that. And again, looking at this project here, we're seeing that. You're creating ways to benefit the community, benefit people, benefit the city, benefit all. And that's very important on innovation because it can be done if we create it, think about it, and then we pursue that. And that's what we're seeing with all these projects here. So again, I commend all the presenters and what we're seeing. And again, creativity there are no limits on that. And creativity is giving people the freedom to do that. And again, I commend the mayor on this, is that you're seeing the freedom to do this, and it's very beneficial, not only on the new projects, but also on keeping things exciting. That's very important, to keep things exciting, move forward with new ideas, keep the employees happy on what they're doing. And then I'd like to even see this expanded on a larger scale, even into other cities, other states, and even into Multnomah County. I'd love to see them begin this process, Metro, and to begin just circulating those ideas. And again, it's keeping the employees and that excitement within, which will definitely benefit this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Anyone else? Then let's take a vote, please, on the emergency ordinance to approve these grants so they can get to work.
Saltzman?
Well, thank you to the Office of Management and Finance for overseeing this process, and it is very exciting to see a lot of the great ideas that will hopefully all pencil out. And but even if they don't, that's part of what innovation is all about, trial by error. So thank you, and I hope they do succeed. Aye.
Novick?
I really think this was an excellent idea, and thanks to OMF and everybody who worked on making tough choices between the various proposals. And I think Lightning is absolutely right, that we'll get some good ideas out of this, but also it's sort of having this program creates a sense of possibility and excitement that I think is very important to the city as a whole. So thank you very much, and I'm excited to vote aye.
Prince?
Glad to see 3 of the 12 being from Portland Parks and Recreation yet again. Aye.
Hales?
Well, thanks to the OMF team and to all the folks in bureaus who came up with great ideas and brought them forward and got them evaluated, and many of them approved. Budgets are how we put our values into action, and one of the values here was that we want to foster a climate where our employees can bring new ideas forward, and you could hear here in the room that people feel that they can do that, and that's a really good thing. Another value here is that we value our employees, that it's a climate in which we say, if you do have a good idea, you're not going to be slapped down, you're going to be encouraged and bring it forward. Another is that we've got a mixture here, which I think is really interesting, of projects that make us a more efficient service provider and also make us a more effective community partner. So I want to commend the evaluation process for getting that balance. We've got this PBOT project that we just heard described. Another one in the Police Bureau is a crime scene processing camera that will cut our crime scene processing time from 60 minutes to 8 minutes. That makes us more efficient, but it also makes us more humane because we don't have victims and citizens held up in uncertainty for all that time. So the mixture of doing a better job as an organization, as a big service engine that delivers all these services to the city is a piece of this, but also that we're thinking about being a better partner, whether it's the project that Lieutenant Fort described or the other one in the Police Bureau that provides driver safety manuals in English and Spanish so that we have drivers better aware of their responsibilities and rights as they exercise that privilege of driving a car in our city. So I think this is just a great package of projects. I really look forward to the next round, and I'm really glad that the enthusiasm across the city's workforce is growing for this and that we have a chance to say, yes, go give it a try. Thank you very much. Aye. Good work. Okay, let's move on to item 803.
Revised noise regulations for pile driving.
Mr. Van Orden, come on up. Commissioner Fritz, do you have some opening comments?
I certainly do. Thank you, Mayor. So we have actually a substitute ordinance that we're entering. I apologize for it not being in the record. And essentially, I've requested that we spend more time processing all but 2 of the proposed code amendments that we heard testimony on several weeks ago. And the council clerk has copies of the strike-through version if anybody is wanting to see those. So what we're doing today is to adopt proposing to adopt the mechanisms on pile driving, and then we will be setting up a task force and doing quick but thorough more work on the other issues related to the whole issue of how you get variances, how you appeal them, and some of the other noise issues. I know that there's a concern in the community to maybe ban all construction noise at certain hours. What our proposal today does is to add to subsection F of City Code 1810-060 of the Noise Code to make pile driving have to comply with the table on decibel limits. And the practical effect of this is that pile driving will no longer be allowed on nights, weekends, or holidays. And so that pile driving will not be allowed between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. on nights, weekends, and holidays. So with that, Paul Van Orden, the noise officer.
Morning.
Members of the council, Paul Van Orden, the city's noise control officer. Just to add a little more detail, the 2 main items that we would be adding to the noise code, the requirement that pile driving not start until 8 a.m. would still, as we chatted about at our last hearing, facilitate the development industry and pile driving companies to begin the setup process, which is not a noisy process. And then when they actually are ready to start driving piles at 8 in the morning on Mondays through Fridays, they would be able to start right at 8. So I think it's not a giant impact as we chatted about last time. And one of the things that we've been chatting about at the Noise Review Board and citizens have been vocalizing to us was the second item, which is starting to make modifications to our notification process. And in this case, we're very clear that mailing notifications to all residences within 500 feet of a project that's going to have pile driving, and doing that at least 30 days before the project. And just to help clarify our interpretation of that in the past in terms of mailed notifications on variances like Portland International Racetrack, for instance, in cases where we required mailing is a direct mailing to the residents. We obviously can't always know in a neighborhood who those folks are, so it might say occupant in apartment 6, occupant in apartment 7, but it would be an actual mailed notification, not, as we've chatted about in past dialogues about appeals, some kind of hand-delivered notice. So we would literally be talking mailed to each apartment and residential, single families, and homeowner and residents in the neighborhood where this is happening. So just as a clarification.
So can you, maybe you, Commissioner, or Paul, understand the change in the substance that you just went through in subsection F, but why the change, why the strikeouts or the removal in the findings?
Because we're not going to be moving forward on the changes to the appeals to council or on the reclassification of the EX zone to be subject to the commercial zone regulations. Those need more work, and so we'll come back with those in September probably.
Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you. All right. Any questions for Paul? So
I just want to make sure the pile driving time limits also apply on the weekends?
Yes, so.
Or are they forbidden on the weekends?
Well, at this point with the new change, we already do not allow pile driving on Sundays.
Right.
And you would now not be allowed to do it on a Saturday unless you can meet the baseline zone, which really no form of pile driving can meet even the most loud descriptor in the noise code. So that's 75 decibels in an industrial area. So they're really, other than some really large pieces of property like the Port of Portland, if you were doing pile driving in the center of the Portland, you might be able to meet the standard, which would mean neighbors wouldn't even have an issue with the pile driving. So it really limits in any residential type neighborhood pile driving on a Saturday, as well as the existing Sunday.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other questions for Paul? thanks and standby. So Commissioner Fritz moves the substitute.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
So further discussion on accepting the substitute, and then we'll take testimony on that. So roll call on accepting the substitute, please.
Saltzman,
Aye.
Novick,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Hales.
Aye. Okay. Thanks, Paul. So I know there's some folks here to testify. Some may have signed up. So do you have a sign-up sheet for
I
this?
did not have a sign-up
Okay,
sheet
so
for the
does anyone like to
substitute.
speak to the council on this item? Come on up.
Oh, was there one? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Let me
sorry.
grab it.
We do have a sign-up sheet. All right, we'll catch up to ourselves here. Hang on a minute. It's always good. And we know who you are, too.
So in the interim, I will say thank you very much to the community members as well as the city staff and the Noise Review Board for their willingness to continue working on this. I am convinced that we can do even more to protect neighborhood livability, and I'm looking forward to having that ongoing discussion.
Thank you.
Wait, sorry, looks like we have 7 people. The first 3 are Brooks Hickerson, Patrice Hansen, and Mary Helen Kincaid.
Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
You want me to start?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning. It's so nice to see you all again. So I'm Patrice Hansen, and I live in the Sitka Apartments in the Pearl. And first of all, I want to say in regard to the proposed changes about limitation of hours and notification of residents, that there's a distinction that needs to be made between the effect of the impact hammer pile driver and other loud methods of inserting piles and the quieter methods, because the auger drill and other quiet methods just blend in with the regular construction noise. When the 4 developers switched in our area, I didn't even know when they were putting piles in because, it's just like everything else. It doesn't require anything special. It's really that impact hammer that needs control. So I wanted to say that. And I'm just going to keep this short and sweet this morning, but something I thought that was also very interesting is in her research, our amazing researcher, Mary Sipe, discovered that what is happening here in Portland is actually happening nationwide, and we are not an isolated incident, and in other words, we are not alone. A similar conversation is taking place during the same time period in cities across the nation, and that includes Seattle, New York, South Brooklyn, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Tampa Bay, Charleston, and more. And I'll be giving you a packet of information that has quotes from some of those cities, but basically, developers are switching to quieter methods like the auger drill in populated areas, and regulations are being changed. And I was going to read some of those quotes, but since the conversation is basically what we've been discussing here, and it's very similar, I don't think I really need to do that. I also included in your packet some of the stories that we collected about how the impact hammer was affecting the lives of residents in the Pearl when it was happening before the switch. But what I've come to realize out of this is that the demand for switching to quieter, more humane and modern methods for inserting piles is, in the words of Victor Hugo, an idea whose time has come. And this thought is going on across the nation. And so it's no accident it's happening here. And also that there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And so, Portland is such a progressive city and it's at the vanguard of so many things. And I think this would be a very important positive change, to have a lot, to just have that kind of concern for citizens and to use the modern methods that are so much quieter and so much more workable in a city environment. And as we get more dense, that impact hammer gets louder and louder because the sound reverberates and it echoes off of buildings. You can't even tell really where it's coming from as more buildings are developed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership on this. So I'm just wanting to check, by changing the sound limits in the quiet hours, that does address the issue of impact hammering versus augering, right? Because if the augering is quiet enough to meet the standard,
Then it should be fine, yeah.
yes. So you approve of what we're doing here?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that it wouldn't limit the auger drill or quieter methods. I just somehow want that to be clear.
Yeah, the general construction noise, Paul can correct me if I've got this wrong, general construction noise would still have to meet the standards of the ordinance, right? So they're not accepted from the requirements,
Right.
but because of the technology, as you described it, it's usually able to stay below that threshold. Yeah, okay. Good. Thank you. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Brooks Hickerson, and I live at 1255 Northwest 9th Avenue in a building called The Pinnacle. And the beat goes on. As the last 3 years, 7 buildings have been built within 3 blocks of where I live. The first 3 used the impact pile driver, and the last 3 used the auger cast, so apparently it does work. I counted over 800 impacts to drive in a single pile. Actually, my wife counted it. She's a lot more patient than I am. And sometimes they require 200 different piles in order for a foundation. So that's more than 160,000 impacts over a period of 6 or 7 weeks, all at about 110 decibels. Now, the OSHA standard for the maximum allowable noise over an 8-hour shift is like 90 decibels. And they have that for every 5 decibels over that. So if you were working in an environment that had 110 decibels, the limit would be 30 minutes in an 8-hour shift. This is because 110 decibels is actually 10 times louder than 90 decibels. Now, Dr. Charles Lieberman from the Harvard Medical School studies the pathway between the ears and the brain, and he has an article in this month's Scientific American. And he talks about that, hidden hearing loss. And what he talks about is that the inner ear, how the inner ear converts the energy from the sound waves and sends it to the brain. And he said the gold standard for this test, it measures the loss of the damage to the cell damage to the cilia inside the ear. It doesn't measure the loss of the nerve damage. It says we don't really have a good way of doing that currently. It says the audio nerve damage doesn't, not only is it not measured, it actually doesn't recover. So what happens is that you can get in a noisy situation, you can't understand speech. I think we've all experienced this at one time or another. So, you know, we really need to, you know, we're dealing in an area where hearing loss does occur and it's not recoverable. Now, Williams and Dane plans a construction project of a 9-story building in Block 5 of Station Place property in Northwest 9th and Overton. I asked about their foundation plans, and they plan on using the impact pile driver, just as they had with Station Place and the Marriott construction. The beat does go on. So what are you to do? You have to decide what is hearing loss is acceptable and what portion of the Portland population. I urge you to be very conservative, and I approve of what you did here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good morning, Mary Helen.
Good morning. Just for the record, I'm Mary Helen Kincaid, and I live in the East Columbia neighborhood. And once again, the testimony I wrote yesterday changed till today because of the substitute ordinance. And I think that's, it's a good step, small step in the right direction. And I was encouraged by Commissioner Fritz's statement of setting up a task force, because I've been pushing for that since, I think, February, because it worked for demolition, it worked for deconstruction, so why not take on one more contentious issue with a subcommittee? But we need to get the right people at the table and a broad spectrum of folks. And I don't know if this was the noise gods leading me yesterday, but my husband was at Chuck's Trophies on 12th, and it's right next to 12th and Jefferson, where there's a huge construction project, and they've just remodeled a huge building over Chuck's Trophies. And the woman was, we've known them for years, they've been in business for 40 years. She was near hysterical because she said the noise has just driven her nuts. She couldn't stand it. And when he was there, I guess they drove a pile, because he said it felt like an earthquake and everything on the shelves rattled. And she said, oh, well, we finally put things back on the shelves. They didn't tell us that they were going to do this. Things had been falling off the shelves. So we hadn't heard about those. This is happening everywhere. So he came home and said, can't the city do something about this? And I was like, where have you been? You know, have I not been ranting about this for a long time? So even he experienced a really bad event, and that the people, and so then she went on to tell him that there was a woman there who didn't have a car, had moved there so that she could use mass transit, but she ended up buying a van so that she could drive to Laurelhurst Park and sleep during the day because she worked at night, so that she could sleep on the streets, and the police had come because the neighbors had reported her sleeping in her van, but that was the only place that she could go to get sleep so that she could work at night because of the impact. And that's just one person, and I guess there were hundreds of stories of, because there's businesses all around there, and they've been told, they went over, like these citizens did, and talked to the contractor, and they were told that, oh, this is going to go on for a year. And I know the pile driving won't, but there'll be noise. There was no notification. Nobody told them what to expect. And this is just this woman talking to my husband and him relaying it to me. But they reached out, called the city, they said, and I don't know who because I haven't researched it, but we're told there's really nothing we can do. What they're doing is legal. So she thought it was criminal. And then that kind of leads me to one of a testimony I sent to you previously about the code is to protect the livability of citizens. And I think we're missing the boat on that because I'm going to say non-compliance of code because we're not protecting the citizens. So I really want to emphasize that the subcommittee be formed, that the notification be looked at. And the one question I have about this is, how are the interested persons, if they can appeal to council? One of the issues that has been before is how are they even going to know a variance has been issued because there's no notification process for that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we're going to change the whole variance process and do it in fairly short order.
Right, but if, for instance, something comes up between now and we change, how are the citizens, since they only have 10 days from the issuance of a variance to appeal to get on the city council, how are they even going to know unless they go every day and look at the website? And looking at the website trying to find a variance is challenging.
We'll have staff address that issue after
Okay.
testimony. Thank you for bringing that up.
Good point.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary Helen.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's hear for the next group.
The next three are Stan Penkin, Judy Bradley, and Tom Foster.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stan Penkin. I'm a resident of the Pearl District, and I am a board member and officer of the Pearl District Neighborhood Association. I testified several weeks ago on the same topic, and I am testifying again on behalf of myself and as a board member of Friendly Streets, a nonprofit organization that advocates for quality of life and livability issues across the city. As I testified previously, while I appreciate that the current proposal to limit the hours of impact hammer pile driving is a recognition of the problem, I want to reiterate that more can and should be done. This barely scratches the surface. And I do appreciate Commissioner Fritz's attempt to dig deeper into the issues and the possibility of establishing a diverse task force to look into this. The harm of impact pile driving to the health and livability of neighborhoods has been aptly described by many before me and in countless articles and government documents. The auger drilling method recently used in a number of construction projects in the Pearl District is a far more acceptable alternative that does not contribute noise, not to mention vibration, in excess of what one reasonably expects during the course of a construction project. At the last hearing on this topic, you heard extensive opposition testimony from DeWitt Construction, a major contractor who utilizes impact hammer drilling. While I tried to listen sympathetically, as a former builder myself, to their claims of extra cost, lost time, and other woes, and understand that they are heavily invested in this method, I am not convinced that their argument is persuasive. To my understanding, DeWitt has been utilizing this method for many years, and I believe has a substantial self-interest in preserving it, especially if they have not invested in and kept up with new technologies. I do not fault DeWitt for taking this position, but it seems to me that the larger interest in the health, well-being, and quality of life of ordinary citizens should take precedence. I also find it ironic that the previous presentation talked a lot about innovation, and there is innovation in the construction industry, and the auger cast method is one of those innovative methods. DeWitt's claims of extra cost have not been quantified, so we don't really know what that means. Can we measure the cost of excessive and incessant noise to the health and well-being of our communities? Should that even be a comparison? We know that there are geotechnical reasons why the auger method may not always be viable. While I support the proposal before you today, now is the time to go farther and look to develop a code that will prohibit impact hammer pile driving in residential areas and allow for exceptions only when it's appropriately certified that the conditions are not suitable for an alternative method. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, folks.
I'm Judy Bradley, and I live at 937 Gleason Street in the Pearl. And I'm relatively new to this discussion. I've never been to provide testimony before, but was persuaded to do so because about 2 years ago in San Francisco, I lived through a long siege of pile driving, that literally went on for months and months. And believe me, it is both psychologically and physically extraordinarily invasive. It's just, and stressful. You can't get away from it. And so I applaud, what you're hoping to do by setting up a task force to look at alternate methods to the impact pile driving. I look at where I live. I'm about 50 feet in a high-rise building away from where a new hotel will be going in later this year. There are 2 other major condominiums facing on that block. And that's not to mention all the businesses below. There's a dentist, there's an acupuncturist and a wellness, clinic. There are restaurants that have, outdoor seating. All of these, the residents and the businesses will be severely affected, if they are subjected to months and months of this impact activity. You can't hear yourself talk if you're outside. When you're indoors, and I said I personally experienced this, at an even greater distance from, I think what I'm anticipating is going to happen in our building, which is probably not any farther than the length of this room here. With your windows and doors shut, you can't think. It's like this metronome, this rhythmic pounding, pounding, pounding that you just, you feel like you just want to scream and have to get away from. So, I realize we're making some strides with this ordinance correction, but I would urge, however fast and however thoroughly, you can get to a discussion of the merits of going to the auger method, I would really appreciate it. And so would the hundreds of other people that, are living around these situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning.
It's been well known that in politics.
Just put your name in the record.
Oh, Tom Foster. I live at 1255 Northwest 9th Avenue. It's been well known in politics that when you have a stand, you have what's called talking points. And what I've noticed is even if your talking point is not true, if you repeat it over and over and over and over again, it becomes known as true. It's what I call the Fox News effect. So you're being told that setting piles with an auger drill is way more expensive than impact drivers. But is that true, right? And if it is more expensive, how much is way more expensive? We were at the last testimony, one of the commissioners asked DeWitt Construction, how much more expensive is it? And he said, significantly more expensive. Well, do you have numbers? We know it's significantly more expensive. I have some real numbers about the impacts of pile drivers. I work as a realtor out of my house. For years, one of the sources of me getting new business is to call the canceled listings right after they expire. Now, it's very, very competitive. If I call somebody at 9 o'clock, I'm already too late. So I have to call right away at 8 o'clock. And if we're having a impact pile drive session, I can't talk to these people. Now, I can close the windows with normal construction noise and continue my life. When that's going, I have to just take a timeout. So, here's some real numbers. Average listing, I get an average of 2 listings a month at $350,000, commission of 2.5%. I figure I lose about 50% of my business because the other agents beat me to it. So, 7 weeks for the Marriott, 7 weeks for Block 17. I figured I lost about 2.5 listings. Doing the math, $21,875. Those are real numbers. I wish DeWitt would provide you with some real numbers, okay? I'm just one person. He pointed out, hey, there's other people. How about the expense of taking to your vet and putting it on medication? How about Marriott losing $319 a night? Boy, I would like to stay at that place. The point is, the proposal before you today is limiting the number of lashings that I can get from 40 to 38. It's still inhumane. We need to set up the task force. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks very much. Don't make this your only appearance here.
Be back.
Good.
Thank
You have others signed up?
The
Okay.
last two who signed up are Joel Burt and Mary Sipe.
Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you want to go first, or?
Matter,
Go ahead.
Joel Burwood, DeWitt Construction. Say, I've sat through this whole process almost from start to finish, and I guess there might be a misconception that DeWitt's the bad guy here. I just want to state that we're just contractor. That's all we do. We just bid on the work. We don't design it. We don't have any skin in the game. And if the price goes up, if the hours are reduced or whatever, we'll just raise our bid accordingly. So I just want to make that clear that we don't do anything except bid on what's designed and build it as it's designed. I think one of the key points here is that I've heard testimony several times where people refer to auger cast versus pile driving. Well, there are two different methods, but what you need to consider is that there are certain times that auger cast will not work. Now, Scott Mills of Geo Design, who designed most of the downtown work here, testified at Noise Review Board on 2 occasions that auger cast simply will not work some places in the Pearl due to the soil. And concerning Block 17, he made a statement that he will never design auger cast in place of pile driving in certain soils. And he alluded that Block 17 was a good candidate for pile driving. So I just want to make sure, and I urge you to consult with your own engineers on methods of construction. The Noise Review Board wisely steered away from trying to dictate what type of methods pile use, auger cast versus pile driving. So again, I just want to make sure that you understand the difference and that it's not just a matter of choice. And as a contractor, we have no say-so. We just do what's designed. Now, as far as the cost goes, Hoyt Street Property testified at a couple of Noise Review Board meetings, the cost from a developer standpoint. I don't have those numbers, but you can consult with Paul. I'm sure he's got those. It is significant. But again, as a contractor, we'll just raise our bid accordingly. So I don't have those figures because it's dynamic, it changes. So that's basically all I want to do, is just set the record straight on a couple of things.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much. Good morning. You get
Good
to
morning.
back
I'm
clean up here.
I'm Mary Sipe, and
I would like to talk about something that the Noise Review Board is not recommending. The Noise Review Board is not recommending to require the auger-cast method for placing piles because, number one, according to project engineers, the auger-cast is not appropriate for every site, and the engineer should make the professional judgment as to whether and if it can be used. Secondly, because the Pearl District is being built on a landfill where unknown organic material has been deposited, and the spoils brought up by the auger-cast must be treated as hazardous waste, increasing both the risk and the cost of this method. I agree that the auger-cast method may not be appropriate for every project, and that the decision should be made by the geotechnical engineers. However, the engineer should be required to provide sound geological evidence that the auger-cast cannot be used. The auger-cast has proven to be a viable alternative in some extremely challenging conditions. It was used successfully on a 28-story and a 38-story building in the Pearl District, Block 15 being one. At the March 11th, 2015 Noise Review Board meeting, as Mr. Burt has referred to, Scott Mills, a geotechnical engineer with Geodesign, the engineering company on Block 15, stated, and I quote, "As an engineer, my duty is for the safety of those occupants of the building, and I would not put continuous light augers under any of those high-rises again." Because he does say that he believes they're safe, but he lost, and I quote, "a year off of his life just worrying about the installation." He said they are quiet and everybody was happy, but I'm not happy with the extra tension that we had to put into making sure that the building was safe. Mr. Mills believes that the continuous light augers are safe, but because he lost a year out of his life worrying and experienced extra tension, he wouldn't do them again? Should the neighboring residents have to suffer the negative effects of the impact hammer so that the geotechnical engineer does not have to experience extra tension? The arguments we keep hearing against the auger-cast are it takes more time, it costs more money, it cannot be used safely because of the contaminated soil. They don't just place the auger-cast in the ground, cross their fingers, and hope that the foundation is safe. Geodesign employs state-of-the-art technology to test these piles. On their website, Geodesign boasts about the abilities of their state-of-the-art equipment to test for safety, save time and money, and reduce the cost and mitigate the risks associated with contaminated soil. I've provided some copies of the information from their website. I have them here. The technology to use the auger-cast safely and cost-effectively is available. This technology protects the safety and well-being of residents and construction workers and should be utilized when appropriate. We need to take the steps necessary to change the City of Portland's noise regulations and/or construction regulations to limit the use of the impact hammer to those situations where sound geological evidence proves that other, quieter methods cannot be used safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Okay, anyone else want to speak on this item? If not, then this is not an emergency ordinance, right, Commissioner? So this will come back for second reading next week. Have I got that right?
I thought it was.
Hang on a minute, let me see.
Would anybody mind if we add an emergency so that we can get this going faster?
Any objection to that?
So I move we add an emergency clause for public safety.
I have an embarrassing procedural question, which was I missed the previous hearing on this, didn't have time to review it. So can I still vote on this substitute ordinance today?
Yes, you can. It's an ordinance, not a land use case. So you, although you have to be in general familiar with the issue before us, I don't think you have to have reviewed the entire record. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Besides, it's a substitute ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
All right, then let's take a roll call on adding the emergency clause, please.
Okay, who seconded?
I did.
Commissioner Saltzman seconded it.
Thank you. Saltzman?
Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Hales?
Aye.
Do
Okay.
we just want to get the
Further-
answer to the question?
Yeah, some further discussion with Paul here now that we've changed the ordinance, so.
So the question was about notification before the task force gets done with how we're going to do variances and appeals and such.
So I think throughout this process, there's been some notable confusion about notification and how it works in the noise office. The greater majority of the 600-plus variances we issue, we don't ever get a complaint on. So with 3 staff, which is the same number we had back in 1976, what we have to do is Kathy Couch, who's our main admin person, and myself, look at the issues, use our professional judgment on which ones are going to be most problematic. The ones that are really problematic, we actually use a GPS mapping system, GIS mapping system rather. We create a notification mailing list. We give that to contractors and to events and actually require them to go to the specific addresses we've given. We don't always require mailing with that, so it sounds like we're probably in the future heading to more descriptive mailing requirements. The other question was on relative to notification that the website is not as helpful to be able to find the information. So one of the suggestions that Kathy and I have made to management is that we find some funding for IT to help make ONI's webpage for noise variance information more searchable. Right now, it's not very searchable, but we have checked with all the coalition offices, and they have at least given us feedback that it's been really helpful that it is on the web, and that if someone were to ask us a question, we can send them an email and point them right at it. A general citizen looking may not understandably be able to quickly find that currently.
And I think the third answer to the concern is that the noise office does have the authority with the noise review board to say no to variances and or to require additional evidence that alternative methods won't work. Commissioner Saltzman, I'll be looking to partner with you and the staff in the Bureau of Development Services to use the inspectors, the geotechnical expertise there to figure out, can we come up with a process that requires proof that you can't use Olga's process, perhaps? And we'll do that in consultation not only with the task force, but with the Development Review Advisory Committee. But in the meantime, obviously you, Paul, have heard all of the concerns and the evidence that's been put in the record, and so you're going to be looking extra carefully at variance requests.
Yes, most definitely.
Thank you. Any other questions for Paul? Then let's take a vote, please, on the emergency ordinance.
Saltzman?
I appreciate the work of Commissioner Fritz and our noise control officer and our noise review board in crafting this ordinance, and believe it's very important to have some well-defined parameters that give people some peace of mind and the opportunity to sleep between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m., to have both. And I look forward to the additional discussion we may have on the future changes, and I think this is definitely a step in the right direction, and I'm glad we're doing it as soon as possible. Aye.
Novick?
I second Commissioner Saltzman's comments on this is a pro-sleep ordinance. There's more and more research that shows the centrality of sleep to human health. If people get enough sleep, then they're less likely to overeat. They're less likely to get into car accidents. So some research suggesting they're less likely to commit crimes. So I see this as a blow for sleep, and I'm proud to vote aye.
Fritz?
Well, thanks to everybody for your engagement on this. I think it is something that we can quickly have, given the work that's been done over the past couple of years under Mayor Hales, that we're ready to move forward with a focused task force. I leave for England tomorrow, and I'll be back in 3 weeks, and I expect to have you thoroughly working hard at that point. Claire Adamsick in my office is going to be taking the lead on this process, and I do hope that we'll be able to come back in September with, or maybe October, by the time we've gone through the different review bodies, with some additional changes. And I appreciate the work that's been done of staff and volunteers, as well as the construction industry. We really are all in this together, and it needs to work for everybody. Aye.
Hales?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for your work on this. I also want to thank Chad Stover from my office, who's worked on this as well. And Paul, as always, you're very valuable to us. And David, you and other members of the board put in a lot of time on this. We occasionally, I just want to comment on the evolution of this discussion here at the council a little bit. We occasionally hear from people, we actually heard from one earlier today on a different subject, who say, I'm worried that I can't really make a difference, and I'm not sure if showing up at city council will really change anything. And we hear that worry about government. And this is one more indication, and I hope that folks from the neighborhood that have brought this issue forward feel the same way, where this issue has evolved in our understanding and in our forward motion on changing things, because people from the community came forward with a problem and said, here's an issue, will you please pay attention and do something about it? And so I'm proud of us for being able to respond that way. And things do change, and we have to react to those changes and respond and try to shape the growth of the city as it occurs. Because, of course, there was a point not long ago, I remember that point, at which no one really lived in the Pearl District. And the first few projects were built perhaps with impact pile driving and no one to be bothered. But we've asked people to live in the urban environment. We've asked them to live close to one another and in proximity and in community in a different way than was true in the past. And thousands of people have taken us up on that idea and said, yes, thank you, we would like to live in the urban environment. We would like to live in a dense urban neighborhood where there was no such place before. And that's not just true in the Pearl District, by the way, as we've talked about in this discussion. That's true in the South Waterfront. It's going to be true eventually in the Rose Quarter when we make a neighborhood out of what's an empty corner of downtown or the central city today. It will be true in other places as well. So we have to figure this out. If we ask people to buy in to the urban equation, we have to make that a good decision for them over time. And this is one of those cases where we have to make good on that. So again, I just want to thank people for being willing to engage, being willing to bring a problem forward, having both staff and citizen experts who bear down on it and give the council good advice. Obviously, there's more to do here, and that we'll have to keep evolving. It has been my experience in dealing with issues of regulation of construction that if we are clear about what our expectations are, if we write good rules and they are practicable in the marketplace, the construction and development community here will respond. That has been the case with good design. That has been the case with green buildings. It's been the case with a lot of things. So this is one more instance where I do believe the private sector will be capable of doing the right thing, but it's up to us to articulate exactly what that looks like, or in this case, sounds like. So thank you all for good work so far. I do, as well as my colleagues, look forward to more. Aye. Thank you all. Okay, let's move on to the regular agenda. Let's deal with the pulled items first. Yeah, I think we should. We had a couple of items pulled from the consent calendar. One is 805.
805, pay claim of Jimmy Duffy in a sum of $45,000 involving Portland Police Bureau.
Okay, come on up. I think there's who asked for this to be pulled?
Mr. Lightning.
Is he still here? So if he's not, unless there are any council questions, I think we should, sorry to bring you here without cause, go ahead and take action. So let's take a vote, please, on 805.
Saltzman? Aye. Novick?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Hales?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 806.
Authorize a partial compliance agreement between the city on behalf of Portland Parks and Recreation and Labor's Local 483, Labor's International Union of North America, that partially implements arbitrator David Steitler's opinion and award concerning the bargaining unit work grievance filed under the Recreation Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Okay. Commissioner Fritz, you have some opening comments before we ask our HR director to proceed here?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very pleased that this ordinance has come to council and appreciate the partnership with Laborers 483. Erica Askin, the business manager, is here and will be testifying also.
Okay. Ms. Canwett, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Anna Canwett, Bureau of Human Resources Director, here before you with an ordinance where the title is probably longer than the presentation. But the ordinance before you asks you to approve partial implementation of Arbitrator Steitler's award. This concerns a grievance that was filed by Laborers Local 43 regarding the use of casual/seasonal employees to perform bargaining unit work. The recreation contract covers recreation leaders, rec coordinators. The description of the work is very broad, but it also states that seasonal recreation support persons, our seasonal employees, are limited to 1,200 hours a year and will normally not be upgraded to the classifications covered by the contract except on an incidental basis, and that was the crux of the dispute. The arbitrator did rule that the city violated the collective bargaining agreement by assigning bargaining unit work to these rec support persons and ordered the city to cease and desist. However, there was zero clarification of what that meant in the award, and the union and the city have been in negotiations since the award in May to come to an agreement about what it means and how the city will comply. So as you know, this is just the first step, stage one. We will be negotiating with the union over the next several months regarding phase two. This first phase, which is the agreement that is attached to the ordinance, provides one-time funding for 86 limited-term positions. They're limited-term positions because there's no ongoing funding. It's just for the current fiscal year. It's 37 customer service representative 2 positions, 22 assistant pool managers, 24 preschool, and then there's 3 regular positions to work on summer camps. So we are asking you to approve the funding for these one-time positions and to maintain, which will help the Bureau maintain programs through this fiscal year. Under the agreement, the city will stop using casual employees to do the work performed by the CSA2s, the preschool teachers, and the assistant pool managers. You have a range of the cost of the phase one of this agreement. It's approximately $1.6 million to $2.3 million. Until we actually do the conversions, it is difficult to have a more exact costing of what that will be. This is, as you know, an issue that has been brewing for some time. The city has continued to provide an excellent recreation program, throughout years of budget cuts. And we anticipate moving forward that they will probably, to achieve full compliance with the arbitration award, will probably be having to make cuts in the program in order to continue it in an affordable way. With that, I have Heidi Brown, who is the union attorney who was instrumental in negotiating the settlement, as well as John Uto, who was here and was also the other member of our bargaining team. I do want to thank them both. This was immensely complicated, in large part due to the lack of clarity of the arbitration award. That did not assist either the union or the city. With that, I don't know if you have any questions for either John or Heidi. I know Erica Askin is here as well.
Okay. So questions for other members of our bargaining team at this point?
So just from our own understanding, are complying with the arbitrator award, we could have chosen alternative courses of compliance. We could have chosen to appeal that award if.
No, an arbitration award is really, in essence, unappealable. The only way is if the arbitrator goes outside of his authority or issues an award that's contrary to public policy. As few and far between, and this award did neither. It was certainly within his jurisdiction to decide whether the work was bargaining unit work or not. And the award is not outside public policy. The issue is it's a poorly written award because the arbitrator didn't take the time to tell the parties what that meant. There was evidence about positions, bargaining unit work, non-bargaining unit work, and he certainly could have provided more guidance, but for whatever reason chose not to. But we really cannot appeal this.
So you worked with Local 483 in good faith to take an award that wasn't very clear then and sort of provide some clarity.
Yeah,
and a phased proposal for dealing with this.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
We could have had the option of going back to the arbitrator to ask for more clarity. We decided it would be more constructive to work with the union. The other option that we could have done was just to stop doing the work overall. But with this ruling came in just before the budget was announced and just before the summer season, and we didn't think it was, well, we knew it wasn't fair. And indeed, that's one of the reasons that the union came to us right afterwards and says, don't cease and desist as the arbitrator directed. Don't do that right away, because they were very aware that that would mean a lot of people being laid off.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions? Maybe
Have
more.
Erica Askin come up, please.
Maybe more later. Stand by.
Yep.
Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning.
And I'll just introduce this by saying again how very grateful I am to Laborers 483 for working so constructively with us and for agreeing to the phasing of the implementation. We're going to start work on phase 2 tomorrow. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Thank you, Council. I want to introduce Tom Collette, who is working with us on recreation as a government liaison. And I didn't want to feel lonely up here. I thought I was going to be up here with Anna, so I brought him up.
Okay.
I'm very happy to be here today. With approval of this agreement, the city is taking a big step forward. This is a fair agreement that not only assures the city is complying with an arbitrator's ruling, it also improves the lives of the frontline staff that make our community centers great places for our families in Portland to learn and play. After we got the arbitration ruling, as Commissioner Fritz said, both sides, both city management and the union, with the assistance of Attorney Heidi Brown, made a good faith effort to comply. And this wouldn't have been done without Commissioner Fritz and your leadership. So thank you especially to you. Even though he's not here, I do want to acknowledge Commissioner Fish, who tried to address this issue 5 years ago as I was first hired as an internal organizer with Laborers Local 483. And I remember at that time that Commissioner Fish collaborated with my boss, business manager Richard Beadle, who all of you remember, to initiate a process that would address the use of what is inaccurately called casual work in the city of Portland. Addressing the wages, rights, and benefits of city workers, as has been said, has been a long road. For all involved, we've had good intentions and we wanted to solve the problems, but we didn't quite get there on a joint process for a long time. After coming up against many roadblocks, Leona Local 483 filed this grievance in 2013. At the end of bargaining, we decided to take it to arbitration. We're not done yet, as has been said also. This is a partial agreement that covers a portion of the work that's being done by so-called casual employees. We're excited, though, that we're going to continue down this road finally with all parties working together. And it's a necessary one. We're going to be doing it through the next several months. Taking this step today means the city stands on the side of fairness, giving our workers a voice in their workplace, basic job protections, and job security. For these so-called casual workers, many of them have worked year after year, and today they are ending a long journey through job insecurity. Their commitment to their community is finally mirrored by the city. So now we're working together to begin the reversal of more than a 10-year trend where union work was being given to misclassified staff. The city then was balancing the budget on the backs of low-wage workers while undercutting living wage jobs for union workers. All residents of the city of Portland will benefit from the recognition of these workers as protected under our union contract. That's because recreation staff don't just serve our community, they live in it. This will bring up more city workers from low-wage work who often rely on food stamps and social assistance programs to work that allows them to finally afford housing, transportation, and food in a city that's growing more and more expensive. When talking to the staff in the recreation centers, we're consistently seeing two issues that's impacting their delivery of services. The first is the difficulty that recreation has keeping long-term employees. And the second is the heavy workloads that existing staff face from year to year as they see more people have to leave their jobs because of not having health care or not being able to afford living here in Portland. And building community takes time. Employees at our community centers become experts by being in the community for years. This institutional knowledge will increase because of this decision. You can just look at Dishman Community Center as an example of this institutional knowledge. The preschool teacher that I know there has worked for the city for 24 years and started the preschool program about 20 years ago. There, she ensured early learning for the kids through play, including French, Japanese, Spanish, sign language, tennis, cooking, art projects, and lots of field trips. The teacher there is a part of a historic institution at Matt Dishman that we all know and love. At the time we filed this grievance, this teacher had not even had a cost of living increase in her whole 20 years as the preschool program coordinator. And now, as a result of this decision, she's going to have an opportunity to have a fair wage and covered with benefits for the first time in her career. She's also seen other hardworking people at the community centers forced to give up the jobs that they truly love because they needed benefits and better wages. So this is a very good thing today that we're doing. To approve this partial compliance agreement is also a step forward for the people who take or send their kids to camp and classes at our centers, the sun schools, and the pools. They'll receive a better and longer-term service from employees who are not overloaded and who are getting better wages, benefits, and protections. These will be more stellar employees who are valued now as a part of the recreation program. I'm looking forward to phase 2, and I'm looking forward to taking an objective look at the remaining positions doing union work. We're committed to a fair and honest process that's based on facts and takes into account the input from both management and the union. We want this to be a comprehensive agreement that offers opportunity and fairness to more recreation workers. And of course, we also want to be able to sleep better at night because of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Anything
So, yeah, did you want to say something? Or-
Anything at this point?
Oh, no. I second everything that Erica said. Yeah.
So Ms. Askin, I guess, do you believe that successful labor negotiations require a underlying code of ethical behavior and respect amongst the parties negotiating?
Yes, definitely.
So a few years ago, or a while back, I'm not sure it was a few years ago, Local 483, the other unions in the city were all assessed, found guilty of committing an unfair labor practice, and were assessed monetary penalties, of which all unions have paid except Local 483. Your penalty was $80,000. Are you planning to pay that?
We never had an unfair labor practice charged against us, but I do believe that's a separate issue, and I'd be happy to talk with you about that next week.
Well, it's not separate to me. It's a sign, it's an underlying sign of me of disrespect and unethical behavior.
But I
Because
think
I don't think you have any intention of paying it. You may want to talk to me about it, that's great. Talk is cheap, but I think as a matter of fairness, and this will govern my vote on this issue, because I don't draw a separation between ethical behavior and respect of parties. And when we lose, we pay, you know, and other unions have paid what they owed us too, but you are thumbing your nose at us, quite frankly.
Commissioner,
You can talk to me all you want about it next week, but you can tell me right now you're going to pay the $80,000 and I'll vote for this, but if you're not, I'm going to vote against this.
Commissioner Saltzman, with all due respect, I think there's a disagreement about the facts here. I think that we do believe we have been put forward ethical behavior in regards to this matter. We would be happy to talk to you further about it, but we're not sure if this is the correct venue right now.
Okay, well, like I said, I'll listen to the talk, but I'm interested in what I believe is a sign of mutual respect that is not being shown here. And we can argue till the sun goes down about facts, and that's, in fact, that's why a code of underlying ethical behavior is required in the labor relations process, because oftentimes there's never any agreement on the facts. That's why we go to arbitrators. That's why we go to the or we go to the courts. And I believe this has been subject to proper fact-finding, and penalty has been assessed, and you're simply not paying where other unions have paid.
Commissioner Saltzman, I do want to make a correction. There has been no penalties assessed. We have not gone in front of the Employment Relations Board. We have not had an unfair labor practice charged against us. We had a motion to dismiss that we filed in a court case against the city management and HR who filed the complaint against us in court. So we have not found any of those charges to be substantiated, and neither has a court or the Employment Relations Board. However, I do look forward to talking with you, and I do look forward to getting past our disagreements, getting past both of our wins and losses. We've suffered a lot of losses as well. And I look forward to getting past that to finally getting something done for the recreation staff who work in the centers, which is a separate contract, a separate bargaining unit. And I don't think we should be using the disagreements that we've had in bargaining from 2009 to 2010, before I was even hired at Laborers Local 483, to prevent us getting something done for these recreation staff today.
What about the fact the other bargaining units have paid?
The other unions,
Yeah, the other unions.
I can't speak to their position on that, so.
Commissioner Saltzman, would you like me to add some context? Would that be helpful?
I'm sure we'll.
I would.
Okay.
So this is a matter that started in 2009, and the city did not bill our unions for union-paid union leave. We have a contractual agreement with our unions that when employees take union-paid union leave, we will be reimbursed. We discovered the error and we back-billed the unions. Needless to say, none of them were very happy about the fact they were getting bills, some of them very large, particularly to AFSCME. But every single union, with the exception of laborers, paid their full bill, understanding they received the services. We did have an unfair labor practice charge around bargaining, and there was an issue around union-paid union leave from 2010 forward. That was settled. Local 483 has paid monthly the amount they owed from 2010 forward. However, we have an $80,000 outstanding debt that 483 incurred prior to 2010. We did attempt to go to collections. As expected, the determination was that the Employment Relations Board had exclusive jurisdiction. So that's the reason there hasn't been any other finding. We were well past the statute of limitations because we were making every effort to work with the unions, understanding that there were some large amounts to pay. The 483 disputed the amount, although advised us they didn't really have good records. And we would have certainly taken a lesser amount, but that offer was never made in the context of just settling this. The only settlement we got actually combined this very grievance with paying that. It was, we recognize 100+ positions into the bargaining unit, and they would pay $40,000, I believe, starting in 2016. So they have been tied together. It was 100, I think it was part of what was in the arbitration as part of the evidence that was provided around positions doing bargaining unit work, and I think that was approximate the list from one of the experts the union provided. So this issue actually was tied together by Local 483, although it's not part of this agreement today.
But there is an agreement for payment in 2016?
No, there's no agreement. The $80,000 is an outstanding debt, and there's no agreement by 483 to pay any of it.
So what's the $40,000 that you just mentioned?
That was part of a settlement that 483 offered to pay half of the $80,000 if we recognized the 100 positions into the bargaining unit was post this arbitration, before we got the decision.
We offered it in this.
My apologies for mischaracterizing the $80,000 as being part of an unfair labor practice. I was confused about that, but the fact still remains is there is an $80,000 balance owed to us. Other unions have paid that amount, and you haven't paid.
I do believe this is a separate subject and that we did make an offer of settlement and the city didn't accept it.
Okay. Further questions or discussion on this question? I want to make sure it's been aired. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wants to speak on this item? Anyone
We
signed
had
up?
someone who wanted to speak on this.
Come on up. Morning.
Sorry, Commissioner Saltzman, but I did not plan on speaking.
Put your name in the
on
record,
this.
sorry.
My name is Robert Wheaton. I am the chairman of, or the president of the DCQ at this point. I chaired the negotiations, and I'm also with AFSCME Council 75. I want to make sure that we were add some additional context to this. Yes, we agreed to pay the $250,000 of lost time. We walked by a valid legal defense in order to pay that. We did so in order to foster a more cooperative relationship with the city of Portland. At this point, I must tell you that I think that that was a mistake. I have yet to see the city of Portland walk by a specious procedural legal defense in order to fight a claim raised by one of these unions, let alone a valid one. I don't blame 483 for not paying that $80,000 because, frankly, they had no legal grounds to. Just like the city of Portland doesn't pay out claims to its employees when they have no legal grounds to. Just like the city of Portland doesn't pay out lost time, or excuse me, they don't pay out back pay if the employee doesn't file its grievance within the 30 days that are required. These things happen on a regular basis, and there are positions that are taken by your Human Resources Department and your city attorney So, I mean, I find it very disheartening to hear you holding this against them when it was just a matter of a valid procedural legal defense that they raised. If the city had a problem with this money that was due, they should have raised the concern in a timely manner. That's all I have to say. And as far as respect goes, yes, there was an allegation of disrespect that was filed across the table. Frankly, it was included in the ground rules. I agreed to that initially. I will never do so again because I'm not going to litigate over hurt feelings. I felt disrespected several times during the process of that negotiations. We did not file a charge over disrespect. Unfortunately, the city did. So we were able to reach a settlement, and frankly, I thought that issue was behind us. I'm appalled to see it raised here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay,
So I just have a question of clarification from Ms. Canwit, please.
come on up, Anna.
You said something about the statute of limitations.
Well, there is a 180-day filing period for an unfair labor practice charge, so we were well beyond that with the amount we're talking about because it predated the 2010 bargaining, which was part of the settlement that we all entered into. So did that answer your question? It doesn't look like it.
So is it still on the books?
Yes.
What I'm understanding is there's a dispute about whether it's owed or not.
I don't think it's a dispute about whether it's owed. I think there's a dispute about how much is owed. I think there's certainly no issue that union-paid union leave was taken and the unions were not billed for that timely. Now, the amount, I think, is in dispute. The fact union leave was taken, I don't believe is not in dispute. But it is on our books still. I don't know the process for removing the unpaid debt is. Perhaps, Andrew's here, he could talk about that perhaps, I don't really know, but.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess I have a question for Commissioner Saltzman. What do you want to do about this?
Well, for the reasons I stated, I believe it's important to foster ethical behavior. I don't believe Local 483 has acted ethically in this particular instance, and I intend to vote no as protest.
So in that case, I move to remove the emergency clause.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second that. Further discussion on removing the emergency clause? Then a roll call on removing the emergency clause, please.
Saltzman,
No.
Novick,
Aye.
Fritz,
Doesn't make any sense. Aye.
Hales.
Aye, I'll talk more about the substance of this in a minute, but there are a lot of good reasons to move forward on this, and so the emergency clause has been removed. I want to thank you too for being here, and go ahead and stand down and let us finish our work here.
Thanks.
Okay, then we've removed the emergency clause, so this will be back on second reading next week. That's the
Yes.
problem, so we need to set a date for that.
No, it wasn't. It can get voted on with 3 people.
I thought you're not here next
I'm not here next week, so
Neither is
unfortunately I won't
Mayor
get to vote
Hales
on
is
this
gone,
ordinance
too.
that I'm so proud of, but that's the way it
Mayor
is.
Hales will be gone too. And
Yes,
Commissioner
but we can still
Saltzman
pass
will-
it with 3.
Okay.
It'll be
Saltzman
2.
will be the third person. Commissioner
I'm-
Does it
Saltzman.
have to have 3 votes?
I'm here
It's not
next.
just a majority of those who are here?
It has to have 3.
It has to have
Yeah,
3
everything
votes.
has to have 3 votes to pass, but
Okay.
I'm here next week.
Oh, I'm understanding, Mayor, you may be here in the morning of the 5th?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
Or
right.
else somebody else may have
So we'll
plans
have
for you.
3.
You has not yet been informed. Okay.
Okay,
So can I make
so-
my speech now?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. It's really, and I'm sad that we have had this diversion because this is a wonderful step forward for the people of Portland as well as the people of Portland Parks and Recreation. As Ms. Askin noted, Commissioner Fish started this work more than 5 years ago. We've heard multiple times, particularly in the $15 an hour discussion that Commissioner Saltzman led, that we need to pay our city workers fairly and that we need to get folks off of food stamps and public assistance when they've worked more than 20 years without even a cost of living raise. That's just appalling. I'm very proud that under my tenure of the Bureau of Development Services, we established more than 100 new union positions in that bureau. When this passes next week, we will have more than 100 new, I will have overseen having more than 100 new union positions in Portland Parks and Recreation. And as an ongoing member of the Oregon Nurses Association, that gladdens my heart. And it shows why unions are important, because people have not been fairly paid. And this, as Ms. Askin noted, the notation of folks being casual workers, they're not casual workers. They're absolutely integral to how we do our business in Portland Parks and Recreation. So although this could have been a bad thing coming out of the arbitrator's decision, the union and HR, the city attorney's office, our office worked together to come to agreement on the first step, and then there'll be a next step. So I'm really, really grateful for that, for everybody's participation, starting with Commissioner Fish, Local 483, Erica Askin, everybody who worked well, the phenomenal parks team that did yeoman's work in compiling information in a very, very short time frame. Eileen Argentina, Terry Davis, Doug Brenner, Joss Green, Jeff Schaefer, Heidi Brown from the City Attorney's Office, John Uto and Anna Canwick from Human Resources, and Tim Crail, who has been integral in our labor negotiations and has been my labor liaison since January 1st of 2009. So this agreement does have a hefty price tag, and it doesn't even achieve complete compliance. So there's going to be a phase 2, which, as I said, will start tomorrow. This is the right thing to do. Funds will be one time this year, and we will be making a request for next year to get ongoing dollars in the budget cycle. I really appreciate, Mayor, your partnership on this and your recognition that indeed we need to pay city workers fairly and do well by our workers as much as by others in the city. We are even now convening the $15 an hour discussion that the council agreed my office would lead. After this, there's going to be thousands of Portland Parks Recreation employees who don't yet make $15 an hour. Not thousands, but a lot of city employees who don't make $15 an hour, and we need to address that issue. Although this work is difficult, paying our parks employees a reasonable wage is one of my top priorities as Parks Commissioner and actually as a human being. And I am thrilled to be taking this action that you will take in my absence next week. Thank you for your partnership in that.
Thank you. Commissioner Novick, any comments you'd like to make? We'll take a vote next week. You can do it then if you want.
I can wait till this week.
We'll be here, say it.
Go ahead.
I very much appreciate everything Commissioner Fritz just said, and it's, darn, I was about to say something impolitic, but no, I mean, well, actually, I'll say it. Every once in a while, it's nice to be forced to do the right thing.
Well, I want to thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for your work on this, and all the folks at the Parks Bureau that you mentioned. I also want to thank my Chief of Staff, Josh Alpert, who's worked very hard on this issue as well. And I want to commend Local 483 for the approach that you've taken with us, because we are required by an arbitrator to do this. And this could have been a much more difficult implementation than what we're faced with here today, which is a case of the city and its workers, represented by a labor organization, doing the right thing in a responsible way. Yes, it costs money, and that's a budget burden that we need to accommodate as we develop future budgets, and that we'll need to accommodate this year. And our budget director and his staff have obviously figured out how to make this work, and we appreciate that good work as well. But it's the right thing to do, and we're doing it in a constructive way. And I just want to commend that work. Other issues obviously have to be resolved and should be, and I hope and expect that that'll happen. But this is really good work, and we're also right now asking a lot of our parks employees, and I want to commend that as well. Some of the folks that Erica mentioned are working really hard right now because this council has asked the Parks Bureau to do more for our kids in this community. There are 1,900, maybe now 2,000 teenagers availing themselves of free summer recreation at the Dishman Community Center, and several hundred at East Portland as well. And our workers are rolling up their sleeves and working really hard to accommodate more youth who need to be engaged in positive activities this summer. So we have to have a spirit of partnership with our workers, and that has to be reciprocal in both directions, and I believe it is. So thank you for good work. I look forward to having this back on council calendar for second reading next Wednesday morning. Okay, let's try to power through the remainder of the agenda, which I think we can do, and then take a break before our 2 o'clock session. So let's move on to 8:10.
Ratify a successor collective bargaining agreement between the city and Oregon AFSCME Council 75, Local 189-3, relating to the terms and conditions of employment of represented employees at the Portland Housing Bureau for 2015-2019.
Welcome back, Ms. Scanlon. Mr. Saltzman, you have any additional
No, I don't
opening
have any
comments?
opening remarks.
Okay, go ahead.
Turn it over to-
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Anna Canwit, Director of the Bureau of Human Resources. I have with me Cheyenne Scott, who was the lead negotiator for the agreement that's before you, who did an excellent job. This was also her first contract that she's negotiated for us, and I'm really pleased with the results. And Leslie Goodlove from the Housing Bureau, who provided a lot of support through this whole process. We reached a successor agreement. We reached the tentative agreement on this successor agreement June 23rd, 2015, which we were really pleased about. Because we reached that tentative agreement before the contract expires, the agreement does provide for the cost of living increase to be retroactive to July 1, the beginning of our successor agreement. This will be a 4-year agreement from July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2019. In addition to the 2.1% COLA increase retroactive to July 1, employees will receive a COLA increase each successive year on the contract, which is with a floor of 1% and a maximum of 5%, and that's similar to what is in our other contracts. The agreement also sets the stage for focusing on wellness in terms of an incentive and our health benefits plan, which we think is really important. As you know, we began the negotiations with a city core plan, as we currently have, with a 95-5% premium split, with the employees picking up 5%. In our discussions, with council around our goals for healthcare, we needed to make a move. It's important to make that move to encourage healthy behaviors by employees to continue to decrease the rate of increase. It's not that the cost of healthcare won't continue to increase, but the lower that trend can be for the city, obviously, the better it is for our bureaus and for our employees. But besides the monetary value, I think is the more important human value, the incentive plan. The component of it is that an employee needs to have the regular visits with their treating physician, and we know from past experience that's hugely important. So many potentially even fatal conditions, such as colon cancer, have been caught early from employees having these visits, having the tests that they need. So literally, this can save lives. What we negotiated with housing was this incentive plan. If an employee does not comply, the premium share will increase to 10% to the employee, and the city is still paying 90%. We didn't have an interest in a great deal of difference because, in essence, our goal is that every employee will remain in that 95-5 plan, and we will not have employees fall out of that. The other issue that we've put to the side but are going to be working on, and once this contract is ratified, be working on over the next, well, I'm not sure how long it will take, certainly probably 6 months, is looking at foreign language and what we need to do around incenting people who work here, who are fluent in what we should be doing when we ask employees, as has happened in the Housing Bureau, to stop performing their regular job duties and assist in interpretation. So because that's a citywide issue, what we agreed to with AFSCME is that we'd set up that work group to look at it citywide. We have a number of bureaus who have an interest in fluency in foreign languages and, again, how we utilize the staff that we have. So that's a work group, a labor management work group that will be set up over the next, well, be set up soon, but over the next, 6 months to a year, if it takes that long, to come back with recommendations that then would be bargained with the individual units. I think that is really it. Oh, the one other thing I should mention, because housing was the first bargaining unit to agree to the incentive plan, the premium split, we also agreed with them, much as we did with COPE, if you might remember, who were the first union to come to an agreement a few years ago with a and agreeing to 50% COLA when we were still in the recession. We did agree with housing that if we were to negotiate a more beneficial arrangement for employees, then we would come back to them with that. So they're not at risk of, in terms of being out in front and having other unions have a deal that's more beneficial to employees. I think it's a very fair successor agreement. Really pleased that it was done before the contract expired. Thank you.
Well done on that one. What's the status of the incentive program as to the elements of it? Where are we at with that?
On the foreign language?
No,
for
the healthcare.
Well, we will, what we put into the contract is it will be starting July 1, 2018. And so the labor ban, it's unique. We have a somewhat unique situation because we do negotiate premiums in our collective bargaining agreement, but we have, as you know, a highly functioning labor management benefits committee that works on plan design. And so the plan design has been discussed with the LMBC, but eventually they will make the recommendations. But what we are looking at is, again, as I said, starting in now 2018, start looking at, that's when we want to implement the plan, but it really, the design we're looking at is the regular visits to the treatment provider.
Right,
So-
and I want to make that clear because those of us who've had spouses of the state system know the nightmare of their online classes and such, which don't work very well. So that the proposal, but it's not yet been finalized by the LMBC, and would council approve it later?
That would, yes,
Yeah.
plan design changes come to council. One of the things the LMBC had looked at is they don't have a lot of interest to date anyway in the health assessment type questions or monitoring in what activities employees are engaging in. We've discouraged that in part because it's an administrative burden on my benefits team. We also know from feedback from a few years ago from employees, they're not really interested in us sticking our nose into their business, so to speak, about that. One of the things that did come out, in fact, in the LMBC that Commissioner Novick attended, is that health assessment questionnaire that's used for some of the wellness incentive plans might be a useful tool for an employee or their dependent to fill out and take to their doctor as really a script to talk to their physician about their health issues, what's going on, what kind of things they're trying to do, because most of us, I think, have a lot of trouble figuring out what questions and remembering the questions we want to ask our doctor when we go.
So essentially, though, the elements of what the incentive, what we needed to get the incentive percentage, the compliance, that will be finalized before 2018?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been yet?
No, it has not been yet.
Okay.
Oh, I should mention, Rob Wheaton is here, and I think is going to speak on this issue as well, so.
Okay, yes. All right, other questions for our bargaining team? Okay, then let's hear from Local 189. Come on up.
You want me to stay so you're not alone, or?
No, I'm fine. I don't have that issue. So I'm Rob Wheaton with AFSCME Local 189, as I just introduced myself. You know, I would like to say we approach this negotiations prioritizing three things, three values. One was diversity, the second was equity, and the third was fostering a cooperative relationship. I wish I could say that we were successful on all those fronts. I don't think that we were. Regarding diversity, we did push for a language premium, and although we have formed a committee, we don't think that that's necessarily a necessary step. We think that this is nothing innovative. If this was 22 years ago and the city of Portland wasn't one of the only public employers that doesn't recognize its employees from a diverse cultural background by paying a language differential, that would be something. But it's not. It's 2015. There's plenty of other policies that we can cut and paste and implement here at the city. We don't need to spend a year with an LMBC process. As far as values go, equity. We were attempting to add what is called a deep classification series to a number of the classifications that are represented at the Portland Housing Bureau. The deep classification series is actually is like Cheyenne Scott, your chief negotiator, is part of. The labor relations coordinator is a deep classification series. Just recently, they hired an employee into that series with absolutely no experience. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. It allows you to recruit from a diverse workforce, develop the skills from within the position, promote and advance from within the employer's ranks. We like this program. We would like to see the successes at Human Resources duplicated in other bureaus throughout the city, such as the Portland Housing Bureau. As you may know, the Human Resources is one of the most diverse bureaus throughout the city, and we think it's programs like this that make it so. The irony with the Deep Class Series is that many of the classifications that we were asking to have Deep Class Series designation were previously Deep Class Series. They lost it when they chose to exercise their collective bargaining rights, when they chose to join a union and they had the housing title added to them. So if you're a program coordinator, you are part of a Deep Class Series unless you work at the Housing Bureau and are represented by a union, in which case you're not, which we find kind of heartbreaking. And finally, we're disappointed with our inability to build or foster a more cooperative relationship. Our proposal with the wellness plan, it's something that we absolutely and we agree at AFSCME. We pushed for it at the state of Oregon. We pushed for it throughout other employers around the state. We were hoping that we can use the COPIA's success from King County, one of the models that we modeled after, one of the models of a wellness plan, to help implement something that could work for all employees here. Not only were we rejected in this idea, we didn't have our concerns even addressed in the proposals. Concerns such as this incentive. The incentive is actually a doubling of healthcare premiums if the employees don't see a physician. According to every study I have, the RAND Corporation did a study, 2% of employers opt to have a penalty-only approach such as the city is using. According to a Journal of Health Policy and Wellness, it suggests that the prudent employer uses a carrot and stick approach, a blended approach, because it has actually improved results in having people actually see their physician and having follow through with good medical practices afterwards. So we're pretty disappointed with it. We ended up accepting this agreement because the pressure to have it done before we expired, so we can have a fully retroactive COLA, the fact that it's only 17 employees, and it's economically where we need it. We just wished it would have reflected what we thought were shared values with the city of Portland. So we reluctantly accept it and would urge you to ratify this agreement as well.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Mr. Wheaton? Thanks, Rob. Thank you. Okay, other questions for Anna? It looks like she has something she wants to add.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. I do want to point out a couple things. One is the vote on this contract from the employees was unanimous. All 17 eligible voters did vote for it. Second, the Housing Bureau is one of our more diverse bureaus. I'm very proud of the fact that they are around 36% people of color in that bureau, which is excellent. So while we certainly do share those values, that it's not a case where the Bureau has not made excellent strides, and it's something to be proud of. The last point around King County is that is a plan that shifts the cost to the sickest members who participate in the health care. That has not been the city's value. It's something we have talked to council about, and I think we have agreement that people who need medical care should not bear the full cost of that, and that is exactly one of the things the King County plan does. So if you don't have to use the services, there's no premium share, but the out-of-pocket costs really hit the sickest members of that population, and that's one of many reasons why we have not looked at that plan very favorably. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those points. Okay. Any further questions for staff? Then this is an emergency ordinance. Let's take a vote, please.
Saltzman?
Well, I want to thank Bureau of Human Resources, Cheyenne Scott, Leslie Goodlow from the Housing Bureau, and Anna Canwit, and AFSCME 189 for coming to this agreement. And Ms. Scott, congratulations, having unanimous support for your first agreement you negotiated. I think this is a good, fair agreement, and I think that's evidenced by the unanimous ratification of it. Aye.
Novick.
I will vote for this agreement, but I do have some concerns about it. I agree wholeheartedly with the idea of shifting to a model where we provide incentives for engaging in healthy behaviors. But as Mr. Wheaton said, I would rather move to that model in a context where we're offering carrots and sticks rather than just sticks. And I have some concern about adopting this model first in the context of a very small unit. I'm glad that there's a Me Too clause, that if there's more favorable terms for the rest of the city employees, this unit will be able to buy into them. But I wish that we'd had a broader discussion with all of our employees against this model before taking this move. I also have to say that I actually have a different recollection of the LMBC meeting that Ms. Canada referred to, where we talked about the possibility in future of adopting, in addition to, visit your doctor rules, the possibility of having an employee's health self-assessment, plus perhaps a commitment to engage in certain healthy behaviors other than just going to your doctors, such as the state has and King County has. I thought that there was some receptiveness in the LMBC to considering that option. So I wouldn't want the council to think that we should dismiss the idea of having a somewhat different incentive model. So again, I wholeheartedly agree we should move to a model where we have incentives for engaging in healthy behaviors. I think that we should have a discussion in the future about what exactly that model should be. I mean, this is one model, but there are others. And I do think that the next time we do this, we should have some sort of combination of carrots and sticks. I will note that ASME at least has a contract with the state, and I believe that Mayor de Blasio has negotiated an agreement with New York City employees where they set healthcare cost targets for the government. And if the employees in the city together or the government together are able to beat those targets, then some of the savings are shared with employees in terms of increased salaries. And I think that's a very interesting model to explore. Aye.
Fritz.
Well, thank you to the team on both sides for negotiating this agreement. Obviously, the healthcare issue is one that affects us all. Let's remember that our healthcare costs have done better in the city over the last 6 years than the general public. And Commissioner, I would say that we actually do have an incentive program. It's the wellness program. So we've had lots of carrots and opportunities for city employees to be assisted in engaging in more healthy behaviors, including the program that we did in the height of the recession to do blood tests and blood pressure monitoring and all those good things, along with counseling at various opportunities in various places around the city. I think it's probably at this point in time, especially in light of the Affordable Care Act and not wanting to get dinged for having a Cadillac policy, we've had the carrots, and I think that it might be worth having a stick or two. Of course, we will all get to discuss what's in that program, which is why I asked that question, and I'm looking forward to a very robust discussion of that. Thank you to everybody for this labor agreement, and congratulations for getting it done before the contract expires. I don't think I remember the last time that we did that, and it's partly due to your leadership, Ms. Canwit, that you have been very firm that there needs to be a consequence if contracts are not done on time, and I appreciate you're doing that in the last set of rounds, and it's showing fruit now. Aye.
Hales.
Thank you. Aye. Okay, let's try to get our last three items done, then we'll take a break. Item 811.
Approve recommendations made by the Children's Levy Allocation Committee for grant funding July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2017.
Commissioner Salzman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to bring today before you and seek your approval of additional funding for the children's services provided through the Portland Children's Levy. Due to increased property tax revenue, the 5-person allocation committee has made funding decisions to allocate an additional $8.1 million in funding to organizations providing proven programs over the next 2 years. These allocations include expansion of Head Start programming, as well as funds for child abuse prevention and intervention programs that help foster kids succeed, and additional funding for after-school programming and hunger relief. Here to give a quick PowerPoint overview is our Assistant Director of the Allocation Committee, of the Portland Children's Levy, Meg McElroy.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. I just want to make sure before I get started that you all have access to what was Exhibit C in the materials prepared for you, as it lists the specific grant allocations, and if not, I have extra copies. So if anyone needs one.
Exhibit C.
Exhibit C, yes, it's a.
Got it.
Great, thanks.
Everybody have it?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got it.
Terrific. So as Commissioner Saltzman noted, this is before you to approve the allocation committee's decisions made over the course of this spring. Our allocation committee is a 5-member public board that is required as part of the ballot that approves the children's levy. It consists of Commissioner Saltzman, Chair Kafori of Multnomah County, Julie Young, who is a city-appointed representative, Serena Stoudemire-Wesley, who is a citizen appointed by the county, and Mitch Horniker, who's a representative of the Portland Business Alliance. Just a little bit of background about the levy. It was created in 2002 and renewed in 2008 and again in 2013, overwhelmingly each time. It's a 5-year levy, and 95% of the revenues that it collects are granted competitively to services in our community for children. It is audited annually, and the levy has 3 main goals that were adopted by the allocation committee: to prepare children for school, to support children's success inside and outside of school, and to reduce racial and ethnic disparities in children's well-being and school success outcomes in our community. So last spring, you all approved the allocation committee's funding decisions that was based on a year-long process of competitive grant applications informed by community input, and you approved those grants in our program areas of early childhood, child abuse prevention intervention, foster care, hunger relief, after school, and mentoring. At that time, the allocation was $32.8 million over 3 years for fiscal year 14-15 through fiscal year 16-17, and those grants are renewable for 2 more years through the end of the current levy. As Commissioner Saltzman said, we received revised revenue projections from the city economists that indicated that we had an additional $8.1 million between fiscal year 14-15 and fiscal year 16-17 to allocate. So over the course of the spring, the allocation committee was asked by staff to look at, or they asked staff to look at what was done in prior levy periods with unanticipated additional revenues, so we provided that context. And so some of the things that we did in the past were the same types of things that they decided to do again, and I'll get into those in a minute. And then they also asked us to revisit the 2014 applications and to look at a handful of criteria around whether to consider increasing grants that had been made in 2014 or funding applications that hadn't received funding in that time. So those are kind of the major categories of funding that was decided upon for the $8.1 million. So there are COLAs that were provided to current grantees for fiscal year 15, 16, and 17. There's expanded Oregon pre-K Head Start slots in our community at $2.5 million for the next 2 years. There is a child care affordability initiative for low-income families that we had previously funded but was reduced from funding when revenues from the levy decreased during the economic downturn a few years ago. There was increased specific funding for increasing some of our current grants. Those are listed on the Exhibit C that I asked you to have available for your reference. There were some allocations made to grants that were, to applications that were submitted in the 2014 funding process but not funded at that time. And then there was some set aside for some work for all of our grants to receive technical assistance support and training around quality improvement of the services that they currently provide, as well as some set aside for work with some of our system partners, such as Multnomah County and the many systems that we interact with the types of services that we fund. So at the end of this decision-making process that the allocation committee has conducted, so including this new $8.1 million, the following breakdown is kind of how the total amount of money from the levy is being allocated to the different program areas that we have. So 30% of revenues are being allocated to early childhood, 19% to child abuse prevention intervention, 17% to after-school programs, 10% to programs in our foster care program area, 9% to mentoring programs, and 8% to hunger relief. 38% of funding is allocated to culturally specific services, 36% to services that serve families that reside and/or attend school east of 82nd Avenue, less than 1%, 0.6, to our training, professional development, and quality improvement efforts with all of our grantees, and 0.25% in the system building and supporting system partners. And these are the types of, or some logos of the organizations that we support. So any questions?
Questions for Megan? Great report. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I don't believe there's anyone here to speak on this item, but want to check on that, make sure. And then if not, we'll take a vote, please. Roll call vote.
Saltzman,
Well, thanks, Meg, for sticking around, and appreciate the support of the voters for the Portland Children's Levy and this opportunity to invest an additional $8 million in critically needed services for young people in our city. Aye.
Novick.
It's a shame to have such a small crowd for this item, but thank you very much, Commissioner Saltzman. Thanks to the voters. Thanks to you for your good work. Aye.
Fritz.
So when taxpayers are getting their property tax bills in November, it's good to remember that this is the kind of services that those shock increases are funding and that this money came in. I'm particularly glad to see the allocation for cost of living adjustments for the grantees. And I suggest that in the future, now that you've moved to doing multi-year grants, that you build that in an expectation that there will be cost of living adjustments.
We had done that for years in the past until the economic downturn forced us to reduce so much of our funding to our grants. But yes, thank you.
So you will return to that practice?
As long as revenues allowed, that's an anticipated assumption on the part of staff to continue moving that direction.
Right. Of course, during the recession, we found we didn't get much cost. There wasn't much of a
Exactly.
inflation. So I think whatever city workers get, our contracted workers should get. Of course, with $15 an hour, we've done it the other way around. But it is definitely considering the same principle of fairness to people who do really great work. And that's the other part of this ordinance, is it reminds us about these great folks in the community doing wonderful things for children. Aye.
Hales.
Well, I just want to thank you, Commissioner Saltzman, and the staff of the Gillette Children's Levy for just a thoughtful allocation of these new resources, pretty consistent with the approach that you and the Children's Levy team have taken. And also want to appreciate your constant diligence about making sure that the huge preponderance of these dollars go out into actual services, and that we keep the costs of administration and overhead and even these training and professional development expenses very carefully under control, so that a huge preponderance of the resources that the voters have approved are going to the purposes the voters intended them to go for. So I think that, that quality of administration deserves to be called out, as well as the thoughtfulness of allocation and making sure that we really are making a difference. The more we look at issues that we're addressing in the city, the need to get upstream, whether it's mental health and the impact on the police bureau, or nutrition and the impact on kids' propensity to succeed in school or otherwise in life, and everything else that the Children's Levy does. This is really working smarter on the taxpayers' behalf, and we've earned the confidence of the people that vote for the levy again and again. But you have to keep doing that every day, and I'm certainly satisfied that that's what this represents. So thank you. Aye. Okay, good work. Let's deal with 807. No, sorry, wrong one. 812.
Amend intergovernmental agreement with TriMet for the East Side Streetcar Close the Loop Betterment Project and increase authorization by $100,000 for safety improvements and settlement repair.
Commissioner Novick.
Colleagues, in December 2012, the city entered into an IGA with TriMet for the Close the Loop project to complete the full streetcar loop of the central city. During the course of the work, PBOT has identified additional safety enhancements, including guardrails at the OMSI streetcar station, that we think are necessary, but the cost of which is not incorporated in the original IGA. PBOT would pay for what we're asking for here is simply to increase the authorization within the IGA by $100,000. PBOT can pay for this work within the 15-16 adopted budget. It's not asking for additional funds, only budget authority under the IGA. Have I got that right, Kyle?
Yes, you do. Kyle Chiswick with the Bureau of Transportation. This is for some repair work that's underneath the structure that connects to the OMSI Street station, and also for the additional guardrail. Basically, what we're asking for is authority under the IGA to pay TriMet when they invoice us. The existing work, the work on the OMSI Street station, the reason we had that larger amount of 100,000 in there was because we were worried that the storm line that drains the bridge actually was damaged by some settlement. We've been able to get in there since then and have been able to scope the sewer line, storm sewer line. It doesn't appear to be damaged, so we think we'll actually spend significantly less than that full amount. But we won't know completely until we're in there.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone want to speak on this item? Then let's take a vote, please.
Saltzman,
Aye.
Novick,
Aye.
Fritz,
Thank you for your work. Aye.
Hales.
As it happens, while we were having this morning's council meeting, we got the latest economic impact report from Portland Streetcar that shows that $4.5 billion in market value has been created along the streetcar line since 1998. An extraordinary return on investment. And the money that we're now investing in closing the loop is going to pay off just as handsomely. Looking forward to that. Aye. Okay, let's do 813, please.
Amend contract with Greenworks PC to $343,750 to complete design and construction documentation for Cooch Park as part of the Parks Replacement Bond Program.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is part of implementing the Parks Bond passed by voters last year. Thank you very much. And the Cooch Park Playground was one of the signature projects that we highlighted to show the need for the bond. In fact, I was very grateful that the bond is available because it's definitely a very well-used playground. And Greenworks Parks uses many outside consultants to complete design and construction documents for park projects. Greenworks PC is next in line for an on-call design contract, but the contract needs to be amended to account for the amount of the contract. So Mary Ann Casson, the Parks Bond Manager, will provide more details about this ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor Hills, members of the council. My name is Mary Ann Casson. I am the Parks Replacement Bond Manager, and with me is Lauren Nath. She is with the Cooch Park, Friends of Cooch Park Playground. The ordinance before you today is crafted out of a desire to be responsive to the community's request for expediency. Even before the equipment was removed in May of 2014, we were aware of how traumatic it would be to have the neighborhood lose their play equipment. Candlelight vigils and children's notes on the fence made it clear to us that this was a much-beloved community amenity, despite its dangerous condition. Cooch Park became a poster child for why a parks bond was necessary. And being able to replace it expeditiously will help us show the community that their trust in us was well placed. Securing this design team today will save nearly 4 months that would take for an RFP process, which contributes to nearly a year saved overall because we will be able to construct in the summer months. That translates to approximately $60,000 in cost escalation savings. The consultant team has been working with us to refine the scope, and they've assembled an exemplary group of sub-consultants to engage in the group, including 5 of the 8 subs with MWESB credentials. Thank you.
Want to add anything to that?
Sure. Lauren Nathy, Friends of Cooch Playground, MLC parent, and I'm here to speak in support and to be in support of this for the parks to move forward as expeditiously and thoughtfully as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your advocacy. Questions? Anyone else wants to speak on this item? Doesn't look like it. So let's take a vote, please.
Saltzman,
Aye.
Novick,
Those pesky voters are approving that bond and creating all this additional work. Aye.
Fritz.
Thank you for your partnership in being here, and Marianne for your leadership of this entire challenge and opportunity. Aye.
Hales.
Well, this is a great case of community advocacy and the city responding. So I just celebrate this. I've heard from a lot of kids that care about Cooch Park, as we all have. So it's nice that we can deliver for them. And Mary Ann, it would make your long title, Park Replacement Bond Project Manager, even longer, but based on my experience with you, I think we should redesignate you as the irreplaceable Parks Replacement Bond Project Manager. So it's nice to have you back in this capacity.
Thank you.
Aye. Thank you very much, and we're recessed till 2 p.m.